Okay, we're live.
That's the way we
Welcome to
like
Now?
Mazecast. Now we're live.
Okay, I'll be ready in a
I
minute.
hope a good amount of that early mumbling and muttering about when we were on the air. Okay, welcome to Mazecast, Season
Yay.
7, Episode 9. Um, Tonight, we're going to be looking at the entirety of the book, attempting to give an exhaustive analysis of references to the Minotaur or just references to the guide that are maybe colored by the knowledge that the guide is the Minotaur. So this could be a long one, as opposed to our other speedy maze cast where we try to get to the point and get you out of there. Any preliminary matters before we get to the
I think
probably
that's it.
prologue?
If you've been looking for a video about what the Minotaur is up to in Maze, you've come to the right place.
Yeah, talked about this topic, and we're kind of surprised that we hadn't done it yet because it's been a while since that information has been confirmed.
So,
Yeah,
where do we all start?
When I thought back through it, I realized, the reason why we haven't done it this way is because we sort of went through and tried to give a detailed examination of any clues as to the guide's identity, but that was before the identity of the guide was confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
So largely this is going to be a rehashing of old material because we already acknowledged before that virtually every clue was suggestive of the Minotaur. And the clues that weren't suggestive of the Minotaur, we largely looked through the lens of, hey, why isn't this more suggestive of the Minotaur?
All right, so we start with the cover?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, now I noticed, first of all, on the door, not the main doorway that we see with the fish over it, but the door inside, there's what looks like a ring on the handle, like a ring in a bull's nose.
All right. That's
Absolutely.
the kind of bullshit that you're going to get from this maze cast tonight, folks.
Also, the title, Maze, is kind of suggestive of something with a Minotaur in it.
It does also start with the letter
You
M.
have to know a little classical mythology to really understand that. So over the next hour, we'll be unpacking that connection for you.
Well, don't you think that font that they've chosen is kind of suggestive of ancient Greece?
It's a little Hellenistic, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Way more Greek than that if they cared about that, I think.
Well, they didn't want to make it too obvious.
Right, it couldn't be too obvious.
You know what book we're reading here. Nothing's supposed to actually fit what you're describing it as. Here's a theme we can introduce, and two themes maybe. Number one, House of Asterion, and number two, really stretching to make things fit House of Asterion. But I think it's worth noting here that on the cover, as we'll see, as in the prologue, that the door is wide open. The guide can come and go. He starts out the book. He's outside. That's noteworthy because in the traditional story of the Minotaur could not do that. The Minotaur was imprisoned in the labyrinth and could not come out. But in the Borges story, House of Asterion, which is narrated by the Minotaur makes explicit reference to not being confined in the labyrinth. The labyrinth is just his home, and he can come and go as he pleases, but when he leaves, he tends to scare the town folk, and so he doesn't leave very often. And that's the only source I know of relating to the Minotaur myth that has sort of this open door labyrinth that the Minotaur is free to come and go from, and that sort of suggests that the Minotaur has this understanding knowledge of the labyrinth that he knows his way in and out. He could leave if he wanted to.
Well, I'm going to just add one other example of that. In Dungeons and Dragons, Minotaur monsters are immune to the maze spell. This is an explicit ability of theirs that gets called out both in their description and in the description of the spell maze.
What does the maze spell ordinarily do?
Traps the target creature in some extra dimensional maze space or something for however many rounds.
What? And the Minotaur is immune to that?
Yes.
What kind of sense does that make?
You'd think he'd be extra sensitive to it.
Maybe
Yeah.
that was where Christopher Manson got the idea.
That is so dumb. It's like the people who were creating Dungeons and Dragons are like, mazes. Minotaurs have something to do with mazes, right? What is it about a Minotaur and a maze? I don't know. I don't quite remember. They're immune to mazes. Okay. Anything else about the cover?
The characters of Dungeons and Dragons were inspired by House of Asterion. Yeah, that story where the Minotaur gets hit by a maze spell and is fine.
I mean, that seems especially inapt in a fantasy world where the concept of a Minotaur has been adapted such that it has no connection to the original Minotaur myth. It's just a name for a half bull, half human creature. Like, it has nothing to do with mazes. Or whatever. Isn't it even weird, sort of, that the term Minotaur has been generalized in that way? I guess it isn't. I guess most monsters have names that arise out of a very peculiar context and then are generalized across different circumstances. But the name Minotaur in particular seems like a weird one to preserve in fantasy settings outside of ancient Greek mythology. No?
Why does it seem particularly weird?
Monstrous look to them.
Wait, what?
They've got a good monster look to them.
Well,
They're
not.
usually big and strong. I mean, even aside from having the bull head.
I mean, it's not that it's strange that the monsters appear. It's strange that they're referred to as a Minotaur everywhere. I mean,
You'd have to just make up another name for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see the problem. It's just they have such a specific etymology that. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's like talking about Medusas or Frankensteins.
Yes. Which
Dracula's
probably don't, but they probably do have like Gorgons or whatever. Or I guess a lot of who cares? All right, directions. Hey, you skipped like the dedication page and the copyright information and everything.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, but actually, yeah, that's the title page. Now, you'll notice there's a T-square.
Yes.
You see the connection there, right?
There's a T in Minotaur.
No. T in the Greek letter corresponding to T is tau, and there's a tau in Minotaur.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Thanks. And in fact, not to spoil it, but I've looked ahead a bit, and several of the rooms have text, including the letter T.
Hey, go back to the introduction for a minute.
All right.
To my family.
The dedication. Okay.
Yeah, the Minotaur did have a family.
All right, moving on.
His family is a big part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I was being funny about that, but it does make me think about the references to family that occur in a couple places in the book. But okay.
We'll get to them.
Direction.
Probably about an hour from now.
Yeah.
We're almost done.
I don't know of anything in the directions or the directions page that has anything to do with the Minotaur.
I mean, we've got
It
these
introduces the guide in the last sentence. That's it.
Would look maybe Greek or Minoan, but
yeah, well, that's true. It does. Something else that's noteworthy about the direction page, and maybe it's not of particular interest here, but this is like the only place in the book that's not narrated by the guide, isn't it?
Yep, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. At least implicitly, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
even the back cover copy is in the guide's voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So presumably that's
on the back cover it doesn't talk about page numbers the way the directions do. Back cover it's all you have to try and go to room 20, but in the directions page it says to go through door number 20, simply turn to page 20. A discussion of it as book isn't really appropriate to the guide's voice.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, moreover, the directions needed to be trustworthy.
Yes. You could
They
say
couldn't.
that clues aren't necessarily trustworthy.
Mhm. Well, it's just that you needed to be able to believe, okay, there is this short of a path, and these are the rules, and
Right.
etc. Like, if the guide said that you needed to go through numbered doors, then you'd think, the guide's just well, no one would. The assholes who already think that you can go through unmarked doors would feel emboldened by the fact that the directions were given by the guide.
Right.
Well, it's like things like, there's a door with a picture of an eye above it. Should I interpret that as Roman numeral 1 and go through that door to room 1?
Or should I assume that's the eye of the raven and a way for us to escape from the world of Maze completely into the real world?
If only.
Yeah, so Manson foresaw those kinds of strategies and decided to cut them off at the pass here at the directions page by giving you simple directions on how to navigate this extremely straightforward puzzle mechanic. Okay.
Prologue.
Okay, there's a lot here. Oops.
All right. You want to read through that, Sarah?
Sure, I'll read that. All right. Prologue. The maze. I met them at the gate, though I usually wait inside.
All right, we already addressed that, but we'll just interrupt you and stop when you say something.
Yeah.
But we already addressed that, so I just interrupted you. Note we already addressed that. The same idea. He's just emphasizing the fact that well, number one, that he usually waits inside, I guess, is a clue sort of towards the Minotaur, but the fact that he's able to come and wait also, emphasizes the fact that he's able to come and go, which is a little strange for traditional depictions of the Minotaur, which again leads us around to thinking about House of Asterion. Okay, go ahead.
But you're right. I think that's an acknowledgement that it's unusual.
Yeah.
So that's significant. Okay. Preoccupied with their own thoughts, impatient, like so many children, they didn't see who I really was. Talk about that?
Children.
So this is the first indication of something a little strange about the guide being the Minotaur, which is that the guests don't notice that he's the Minotaur, which for traditional depictions of the Minotaur would be virtually impossible.
Right.
Maybe they think he's a person with a full mask.
Well,
that's what you would think if you saw a Minotaur.
Well, I guess that's probably true. I would think it was curious that he was wearing a bull mask, and I would notice it, but I would not think that it was an actual Minotaur.
Yeah, you might comment on it.
So yeah, actually, there's an additional part to that, which is that it's suggestive that if they were paying more attention, they would be able to tell who he was. So that he is a recognizable figure, but if you're not paying attention, you could miss who he is, which doesn't seem to line up with the Minotaur that well.
This is the version of the Minotaur who just looks like a person.
Well, it could be a version of the Minotaur who looks like the face in room 43, which is just kind of a dude with a beard but has horns on his head, Like, that's it. I mean, who knows what we're supposed to draw from this, but it does seem that we're dealing with a more human version of the Minotaur than we typically deal with, even more so than in House of Asterion. In House of Asterion, he was so frightening appearing that he couldn't go out of the labyrinth without frightening people. People would run and hide and stuff. Whereas here, he can have face-to-face conversations with children. Or do we ever? They're implied to be childish here, but they are elsewhere stated to be children, right?
No, they're not.
Literally,
I get the impression that they're not children.
I can remember.
He likens them to children. So I see that as another reference to the Minotaur myth, right? Because it was children who were sent to him to devour.
No.
So,
well, I mean, I guess it was in room 26 because he calls them children. But it's hard to say whether, I guess he might not mean that literally.
Well, he says like so many children. You wouldn't say that if it was a group of children.
No, you would if you're saying that they're like so many children.
Oh, well, that's not how I read it, but okay. That's a good point.
I think maybe they're children in the same sense that the guide is the Minotaur. That is, these
Not
are all regular adult people, but they represent children and the Minotaur. I see the guide as more a symbol of the Minotaur.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there is something to that in that all the characters may just be like abstractions on people that, there's not like that solid of a narrative flowing through this book.
Mm-hmm.
And to try to interpret it too literally just doesn't work. And so,
Right, if I think of the narrative as an allegory for the Minotaur, I mean, it's not one that matches up in all the particulars. Nobody kills him.
and it's not one that has any secondary meaning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, figuring out the guide's identity, it's not, the Minotaur, that character from that myth, he's got into the maze. He's in this house and he's doing all his Minotaur stuff. Or, this character who we have in the book is kind of like the Minotaur in some respects.
Yeah. That's true. And that, in a way, bleeds into the other major work of popular fiction that dealt with the Minotaur, which is The King Must Die, which was an attempt to retell the Theseus myth in a way that was suggestive that like these are real historical events that could have happened, that could have served as an inspiration for the myth. Not because the author believes that that's what actually happened, but just as sort of an intellectual exercise. Here's like a realistic version of stuff that could happen that could be exaggerated over time to give you a bullheaded person and, the son of a god and all this stuff.
Right.
So in that version, the king actually, Minos, wears a bull mask, and I think his illegitimate son, who they call the Minotaur, wears it at some point, but it's not actually a bull. It doesn't have any bizarre monstrous characteristics. The problem is that doesn't really fit either. Like, this is not a normal human being, I don't think, because otherwise, why would they have recognized them at all? Like he says, they didn't recognize who I was because blah, blah, blah. I guess he could just mean because, he's a famous, important person, so they would have noticed. I don't know.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff, I think, throughout the maze that suggests bull-like characteristics.
Yeah, they didn't see who I really was.
Like literal features,
it
not just
like he looks bull-like, but in some weirdly subtle way.
I don't know. I think we're reading too much into that. I think he's just straight up the Minotaur, how you would expect him to be. But Manson had to say something to acknowledge that it's ridiculous that they didn't notice that.
Well,
and that they're not terrified of him.
Sure-ish. No, I mean, sure, but it does. In other respects, though, he's not like the Minotaur.
Right.
So you have to make a lot of those allotments. So it is possible that Manson's just like, I don't care. I don't care what the Minotaur's really like. This is what my character's like, and he's the Minotaur because I say so. And the kids didn't notice because they were thinking about something else when they walked up to the house. And there you go. That's what it is. Or I mean,
that there isn't really. He didn't really think it through in too much detail.
Yeah. On the other hand, when you get to room 16, which we will get to, in part 45 of this series, when we're like 400 hours into it, when we make it past sentence 3 of the prologue.
We're doing fine. We're almost on to room 1.
Yeah. When you get to room 6, been exaggerated, which to me suggests that he has given thought to the fact that the Minotaur, as he's presenting him, is not like the Minotaur in the typical myth. Mm-hmm. He is less of a bull and more of a person. So,
okay, we
I don't know.
The first half of what you said because you cut out. But...
Oh, are you kidding? For fuck's sake.
Just like a small section of it.
Oh, well, basically all I said was this is taking a long time, and room 16 says stuff about.
Oh, okay.
I heard that part. I did.
Okay,
Oh,
that's all.
okay.
All right.
All right, should we continue?
Yeah,
Yes.
they never noticed my crown, my pain, the fire in my eyes.
Oh, stop right there. Like what a loaded statement there. Like we've tried to unpack this.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you're cutting out again.
Yeah,
So many different. What's that?
You're cutting out
you're
again.
cutting out again.
Sure. All right. Well, someone else talk then.
All right, so the crown, Minotaur is one of his parents was close to a king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Go on.
Well, that seemed like a weird jump to make.
Yeah.
Well, the obvious interpretation of crown is horns looking backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
By crown, he just means
right, but he's also royalty, sort of.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes ambiguous. But I do agree that it seems more likely with the minute means they didn't know than that they didn't notice he was wearing a crown. But who knows? Because we have no idea what kind of actual bull characteristics this person has.
Mm-hmm. Okay, pain. What about pain?
They should have known I was the Minotaur because my eyes are so fiery and I'm in pain all the time.
My pain. What kind of pain did they not notice that the Minotaur has? His like loneliness?
That's one that connects to House of Asterion a lot, I think.
Yeah, in House of Asterion, the Minotaur is gone fairly crazy from isolation and plays weird games where he'll pretend that there's another Minotaur that he interacts with, and he'll like just like suddenly tear off running through the labyrinth, or he'll jump off of ledges and hurt himself.
And he plays tour guide to the imaginary other Asterion too.
Yes.
Which is an interesting parallel to this guide.
That is interesting.
It's true.
And he's eager for someone to come and kill him, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
actually, are there any other depictions of the Minotaur where he's guiding people through a maze?
I don't know of any. I don't know of any other depiction of the Minotaur where he's like an intelligent being who could communicate and, you know, have any kind of rational thoughts at all. He's usually just depicted as a monster.
Right, and not somebody who will like go through the maze with you, but somebody who will be a danger lurking in the maze.
Right.
Yeah. It's not really discussed that I recall in House of Asterion why he doesn't interact differently with the people who come to the maze. I'm trying to think of what it says. I guess maybe we should have pulled it up ahead of time, but like you would do, the obvious question is, you know, you're so lonesome. He doesn't really go on and on about being lonely. It's, you kind of infer it from the sort of crazy nature of it, the way he spends his time, and the fact that everyone's afraid of him and stuff, that you get the impression that, okay, it's isolation that's driving him mad. He just seems to accept it as being his lot, that has to kill everyone who comes into the labyrinth, and eventually someone will come that's going to kill him.
I don't know. If I had a big enough labyrinth, I'd probably act that way.
So, that seems to be the primary, even in the ancient myths. If we talk about the pain of the Minotaur, you don't think about physical pain.
Right.
You think about, I guess, imprisonment. But he's not in prison here, obviously. And people are not like instantly afraid of him when they see him. So he doesn't seem to be isolated, except perhaps by his choosing. So what is going on with this version, and what is this Minotaur's pain?
Nobody appreciates his puzzles.
Right, because he seems quite delighted to be doing what he's doing.
Yeah. Crown, my pain, the fire in my eye. Well, okay.
Should we carry on?
Yeah.
Well,
Come back to it if anything comes to us?
okay, I think we'll come back to that line. Well, we didn't even say anything about fire in his eyes, but what the hell does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, it
Like all
suggests
the
that he's a fierce animal.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
Done.
Like all the others, they think the maze was made for them. Actually, it is the other way around. They think I'm some
Maze was
poet.
made for the guide.
That's not the other way around.
No, but
No,
I mean
no,
that's how
They were made for the
maze was
maze.
made
they were
in
made for the
Minotaur
maze.
stories.
Maybe they were made for the maze that.
Go on.
No, that was all. For some reason, the musicality of that line struck me. Yeah.
They think I'm some poet who will lead them through the symbols and spaces of this underworld.
Okay. So he's saying this is an underworld.
Mhm.
So let's just assume that this thing, he means that literally, that they're dead. This is. Hold on.
I mean, this seems like a pretty clear Dante reference.
Yes, it does, especially with poet in there.
Yeah, this is the bit that rules out the idea that the guide is Virgil, which you would otherwise assume.
Right, but I mean, obviously, the Dante reference, Dante's Inferno also includes the Minotaur, so that's consistent.
Gets across the idea that Manson is familiar with literature.
It's true. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Suggests that the guide is someone kind of classically minded. Tells you something about his taste.
I think there's
a reference to Cerberus later.
Right. I mean, this is a reference that has confused people, I think, because it seems to open up the guide to more interpretations. Like people
How does
have
this
thought about.
confuse people?
Pardon?
Wait, how does the Dante reference confuse people?
Well, I don't know if it confuses people, but it seems to open up a lot of different or additional potential people who could be the guide.
How? Like who?
Oh, well, people started tossing around Charon, right?
Yeah. Yes, this bit saying, "Oh, I'm not like Virgil from the Inferno." He says that. Maybe he's somebody else from the Inferno.
Right. Right.
Well, so so do we? Okay, is underworld literal or metaphorical? I think it's literal. I think this is some kind of afterlife thing, right?
Well, no, I think it's just a reference to the place Virgil guided Dante through.
Well, it is.
Maybe I'm like Virgil in that story, but I'm not.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Dan. Kind of agree with that.
You don't think that this is an underworldly? See, I don't think so. I think
Right.
this. I think they are all. That's. I mean, they do get guided into some dark room where they're left in infinite darkness with others forever. It seems. I mean, I guess they might just be dying down there. Maybe they don't sit in there forever. Maybe the people who are already in there haven't been in there that long. But it certainly seems like there's something more going on here than this just being a weird. Well, who knows? I mean, it's a magical place,
Right.
but it could be a magical place in the real world as easily as a magical afterworldy place.
This is really unearthing our fundamental beliefs about maze.
But okay, I guess the point is just maybe that this is an afterlife type place. Maybe this is an underworldy type place, and in which case we might be dealing with a version of the Minotaur who's somewhat different than he was in life, I guess. So maybe he's no longer feeling the torment and pain of isolation and imprisonment, but he still remembers what that was like, and so he gets his jollies dishing it out to other people now.
Right.
So this
Reasonable.
is hell for those people, but it's heaven for the Minotaur.
Minos is in the Inferno, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But the Minotaur is not.
No, he is.
Minotaur is too.
Minotaur is too? Okay.
He guards one of the circles, violence or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the description of where the Minotaur is has some similarities to some parts of the trap. I mean, not like great similarities, but it's like some vague similarities. Rocky, where stuff is collapsed, and
even some of the famous etchings. I don't know who did those etchings, but there's famous etchings of the Inferno that have some resemblance to Room 40, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious that Manson would be familiar with famous etchings. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it was really a deliberate reference. He would have been aware of it, and he was certainly making Dante's Inferno references here deliberately, et cetera, but with all the different locations and things, it's not unlikely that some similarities to the Inferno are going to occur by accident. Blah, 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 blah.
So let's
all right, should we move on?
Yeah.
They think I will teach them lessons. They should call me Cerberus. I am the lesson.
What the hell does that mean?
Makes sense. Yeah. Why would you call somebody Cerberus because they're a lesson?
That sentence doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay, so let's chalk that up to Manson not knowing who Cerberus is and move on.
Now no, let's not move on just quite yet. Like we don't want to
Greek myth reference.
We don't want to get through a whole page in one night.
No.
So the thing about Cerberus doesn't have, to my knowledge, any kind of deep mythological background. Like here's the story of how Cerberus got where he was. Here's why Cerberus is there, et cetera, et cetera. Cerberus just like appears. Like Cerberus is just Hades' dog that guards. Am I saying Cerberus?
Yes, you are.
Cerberus.
No.
God damn it. Cerberus has a very detailed origin story, and you should check it all out. Everyone, if you haven't read it, Dave Sims' Cerberus. It's really a masterpiece. Okay, Cerberus, to my knowledge, doesn't have any kind of a mythological origin or anything. He just shows up. Hades just has a dog that's guarding the underworld, and it has 3 heads and all this stuff. So there's not much, like in a metaphor, when someone like is suggesting that they should be called Cerberus or they're like Cerberus, it's
what is that? You have 3 heads.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's like 3-headed. That's like one aspect of Cerberus. Guard something. That's another aspect of Cerberus. That's about it.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of depth.
The guarding thing is significant, right?
Yeah. So Cerberus would meet people at the doorway to. Was it the underworld in general, or was it like the Tartarus part of it, right? It was just the bad part, right?
Sticks.
Yeah.
Guards the gates of the underworld.
Well, like if you were going to the Elysian Fields or something like that, would you still have to go past Cerberus at some point?
I don't think so. But
I don't know. I guess it's not that.
It's unclear, like how consistent a picture there was of all that.
Yeah. In any case,
Just
Guardian of
a single vision.
So if he just in some suggestive way said, hey, I'm kind of like Cerberus, and they should call me Cerberus, like that doesn't seem that mysterious. It's kind of like, they can get, they're not coming back out of here, or something like that. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll let them in, but I'm not going to let them out. Or, just the suggestion that this place is more sinister or dark than they realize, that he's, whatever. Him being the guardian of this place is not totally mysterious. Like, you can make some sense of that.
Mhm.
But what does that have to do with him being a lesson?
Right.
I am the lesson. I don't know.
It's a big deal.
They think I'm going to teach them lessons. Pff, I am the lesson.
Try and learn me.
Yeah. Like, I am the lesson, and they're not going to learn it? Like, I mean, is that... Like, it's like he's not even saying he is the lesson in the sense that there's an important lesson that they're going to learn from looking at me. Like, my life is a lesson.
You're going
Because
to
he's
learn
like...
the lesson that the Minotaur will kill you.
No, but he's like saying, it's like suggestive that they're not going to learn the lessons. Like, they think I'm going to teach them a lesson. I am the lesson. Like, if they were going to learn a lesson from him being the lesson, then it wouldn't make sense to like balk at the idea that he's going to teach them lessons. So it's like he's suggesting that they're not going to learn any lessons from me. I am a lesson.
I'm a terrible teacher.
Okay, so are we gonna venture into truffle territory?
What? No.
No.
We're trying to talk about the real book, the real words, and the real pictures, and
Mr. Manson.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Even if you don't buy all the truffle or the tripartite things.
See, this is the thing where
I don't. Okay, we don't have to get into this again. But if you do buy the trefoil thing, then that's what the Cerberus reference is about. Although it still doesn't make a lot of sense out of the lesson stuff.
No, we should treat this fairly. There's a theory that the reason the guide says they should call me Cerberus is to suggest that he likes the number 3, and so you should look through the book for things that sort of come in threes.
But you should ignore most of those things and only pay attention to the other ones that are somehow related to something.
Basically saying, I am the lesson, and my favorite number is 3.
Yeah.
You could rephrase his claim to be Cerberus that way.
He says that you should call him Cerberus because he lives in a house where some things have 3 parts, just like Cerberus. Because Cerberus lived in a house where he was, and he has 3 parts.
Well, the reason I think Manson chose a truffle shape is that's you can sort of get like a 3-part shape out of a bull's head.
Right, so they should call him Cerberus because Cerberus had 3 heads, and that's like the number of points on a bull head.
Yes. Thank you, Diane. I'm happy that you have taken in my point. Okay, we can move on. The monstrous walls rise up and run away as far as the human eye can see, circling and dividing. Which half is the maze?
Interesting that he singles out the human eye.
That's a good point. I think that is a good point.
That is. I never thought of that before, but I think you're absolutely right. He is distinguishing himself from humans.
Right, because even a human eye, which is much better at distance vision than a bull eye, yes. I'm actually not sure if that's true.
It's probably true.
I don't know, they're bigger eyes.
Well, but they've got eyes on the sides of their heads, so they're probably not that good with distances. Like, I mean, not that does. I guess that doesn't have anything to do with how far they can see clearly or whatever.
I mean, how far you can see
suggests
a weird notion to measure anyway.
Yeah, but it's at least suggestive that they're not evolved with, well, like most. Okay, we'll keep going.
Okay. Well, which half is the? I mean, which half is the?
So talking about
that's not a Minotaur thing, is it? Okay. Even I get lost.
You're thinking about how the Minotaur is half man, half bull.
Yeah, just like the world is half maze, half not maze.
All right. Even I get lost.
Dead air.
We had to get some in there. All right, even I get lost. That's pretty...
Yeah, that's the first thing that suggests the usual circumstances of the Minotaur.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, though.
Yeah.
But I guess things are about to get weirder in the rest of the paragraph, so no reason to stop here.
All right. It changes, sometimes slowly, imperceptibly, sometimes suddenly. This house is not only made of stone and mortar, wood and paint. It is made of time and mystery, hope and fear. Construction never stops. I take some pride in my role as architect.
Nothing Minotaur.
Having some pride in the circumstances of the maze is sort of House of Asterion-like.
Yeah.
Architect role, not really.
Well, doesn't he say something about having made the maze in House of Asterion?
Oh, did he?
I think he does.
Yeah, well, he hypothesizes that he may have created the entire world.
Yeah, but we know he's wrong.
Yeah. Well, he at least suggests the idea. He may be wrong here, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe his role as architect is non-existent.
Well, we're not supposed to trust him, so...
Maybe the maze
that's
is
true.
really made out of hope and fear.
All the clues that suggest the Minotaur are correct, but the ones that don't, hey, he doesn't tell the truth anyway.
Right. Don't trust that.
No, this is a weird one. I mean, so it's hard to separate out here, like the nature of the maze from the nature of the guide. So we can sit here and talk about, hey, this doesn't fit with the Minotaur. What's this and what's that? But we don't even know on a basic level what's going on here, what the maze is, who's going to it, why it changes on its own. But all this stuff is much more suggestive of Daedalus than of the Minotaur, which is why Daedalus was always one of the front runners for the possibility here, despite all the Minotaur type clues. Is that because
pronounced? I thought I said Daedalus.
I don't know. Daedalus?
Yeah. I said Daedalus.
Oh, wow.
It's 3 different pronunciations. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
Well, it is spelled a lot of different ways too. Let's all agree on one wrong pronunciation to use. Let's call him. Okay, we'll call him Daedalus.
Yeah, take that.
Daedalus. Great.
So Daedalus.
Icarus's dad.
Okay, Icarus's dad sort of had a dark side to him, and he wanted to kill people who were smarter than him, although there was only one of them, right? And he built the labyrinth, and he built a lot of clever inventions and did a lot of weird stuff. So it certainly would make sense that if you got some crazy maze, that Icarus's dad would be behind it. Doesn't make any sense that the Minotaur would have anything to do with building it.
Well, but later, right, in the trap, we get that notice that suggests that he isn't the architect. Or wait, no.
Well, it's
representing himself as the guide. Never mind.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that notice as suggesting that, maybe there is a guide that this person is impersonating, and
right. Who put that notice up? First of all.
Well, my theory is that notice is from the true guide, who is you, the reader. I recognize that my theories on this are controversial within the community. I notice that notice is right next to a sign with a picture of an eye.
Now, I wonder why the guide doesn't want people to know who he is. Presumably, okay, that sign's scratched off. Presumably, it was the guide who scratched it off because he didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of odd they didn't just tear it down completely.
Yeah. Oh, we got to give some, suspension of disbelief to that one. You're right. That's totally stupid, but I think we can understand.
Hanson wants to suggest some.
Yes.
We have to be able to read
there.
some of it, or there's no point in having it.
But why does the guide care? Like, why would you expect that people would read your guides no other than the Minotaur, and they'd go, oh no, not that.
Oh, the Minotaur! What are we gonna do now?
It's too late then anyway. The trap is a bad place to put them.
He seems to like kind of playing around with them and keeping them in the dark about what's really going on and how to get through the maze.
Well, let me say this, and there is a slight disconnect between the narrative. There's a disconnect between the narrative and the actual circumstances of the physical book. So, like the prologue here talks about how the maze is constantly changing and he gets lost and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
well, obviously, for the real physical book, that can't happen, and nothing changes. Everything stays the same. But within the storyline of the book, even when they're in the trap, maybe there's some hope of escape. Like in the realities of the book, there's not, because the layout of the maze is set in stone. Mm-hmm. But within the world where the maze is constantly changing and all this stuff,
we do
the guide is still very. Something will change, or they'll find a new exit and get their way out. So the guide is still working towards getting them to room 24.
And we also get descriptions of particular changes that are ongoing, like it's where people have dug a hole in the ground and uncovered an entrance.
Yeah.
Painting.
27.
All right. Okay, we're almost done. The prologue.
It's like this snapshot of a living, changing maze.
They think I will guide them to the center. Perhaps I will. The sun was very hot. Together we walked through the gate into...
The sun was very hot.
Yeah.
We've talked about before.
The Minotaur is famously a sun.
It's true.
Okay, so here's, I mean, this is what my thought has always been about the fire in my eyes, is that the picture, the prologue picture, has this door handle that has like little horns, and it has the bull thing, and it's got the sun beaming right into it. And there's a lot of talk about the sun, blah, 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 on the first page in the prologue. So
I will.
The guide is that door handle.
I will concede that that door handle looks as much like a bull's head as the one in room 43.
Yeah, it does.
So we can see eye to eye on that one.
Oh, great.
Well, it looks like a bullhead with an extremely long ring in the nose.
He went to some trouble to make pointy little horns on this door handle, which it's strange. You never would see that.
Yeah, and those aren't there on the front cover.
No.
Are they there on page one?
That's a plus or minus.
Yeah, the page one has them.
Yeah.
Yeah, page one has them.
I have absolutely no doubt that these door handles are supposed to look like little bullheads.
I believe that you don't doubt that.
They do have a bullhead shape.
All right, Here we go. Room 1. The entrance hall of the maze. They look carefully at the bronze...
Just for completeness sake, even though we've said it in 10 other videos, the sun is of special importance in the House of Asterion. The Minotaur has a special relationship with the sun. He hypothesizes that he and the sun are the only two things that have existed forever. So there's some weird stuff in this book with the sun. We don't know why the sun is emphasized all over the place. We don't know why it's emphasized there or here. But there may be some connection there to House of Asterion.
God, that is one of the questions I would really love to have an answer to.
Whether Manson was
not that it would tell us anything, but it would just be nice to know. Yeah. Okay. Well, do we bother reading page 1? I don't know if there's anything.
Read if you want.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to read every sentence on every page. I think we can probably look at a page and say, okay, do we see anything here?
Yeah.
All right, well,
I don't think there's anything in the text on this one.
I don't think so either. I mean, there's sun stuff. It talks about the sun, and there's sort of a hint as to, well, not a hint. I mean, they just talk about how this place can be sinister, which again gets to the nature of the maze, but I don't know if it has anything to do or much to do with the identity of the guide.
Right. Well, and again, the sun glared at me through the doorway. There's that little handle. Anyway, okay. Here we are, room 2. Oh, I have a theory about this one. You're going to love it.
Oh, does the bench look like a bull's head?
Yes. No. Okay, so we have all kinds of theories about this room, but one of them is that the moon and star is to help you think of Byzantium, because the moon and star was a symbol of that city. But I think moon and star can also go together to be your rebus, sort of, for monster. And that is on the door to the trap.
Man, I wish I had my camera on right now so that it wasn't just stupefied silence, but you could see my look of shocked embarrassment when you...
Oh, I have so many worse ones coming, Vincent. You have no idea.
oh, wait, Moon Star is also an anagram of Minotaur.
Okay, is there anything anyone else might like?
There's a moon star at the end of this book. This is a worthy page because I am afraid of moon stars.
Oh man, I used to have that book too.
That's a good one. So that pennant to the right of door 12, it has horns at the top.
Yep.
Like a Minotaur.
Yeah, I mean there's horns all over the place throughout this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are musical horns in the illustrations too. This is a horn-filled room.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I don't think much here to tie in with the guide.
No, I think we should move on.
Okay. Here we go, room 3. This is the
backwards room. With some more mythological figures, the Sphinx.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the text. There's
more
an Egypt-style Sphinx than a Greek one, but close enough.
Is it, or is it the other way around? That's more of like a Greek one than a. Isn't the? Oh
the
no,
hair
you're right.
looks Greek.
You're 100% right. There was a Greek Sphinx that had wings and like stuff. This one is more like the statue, right?
Yeah.
In any case, that'd be a pretty tangential connection anyway to say, hey, this is in Greek mythology and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah, like I mean, in general, we can say there's a lot of.
We know that the guide is somebody who likes Greek mythology so much that he calls himself Cerberus.
Okay, should we move on from room 3?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
On again.
Oh, sorry, backwards. There we go. This is room 4.
He snorts.
He snorts. That's significant.
Like a lol.
A cat gets afraid of him.
Well, that's, I mean, it happens several times, right, that he makes noises that are bull-like noises.
Oh, well, it's worth mentioning every time we see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. The coin thing is another thing that made people think about Charon.
Oh, yeah, because he deals with coins.
Or Two-Face.
Or Two-Faced, right. Yeah.
I mean, here's a room where he seems to want people not to pay attention to that. Well, he tells them not to pay attention to that face. Not clear what that is. I mean, you read it, you instantly think that, like, maybe that's his face, but apparently it isn't.
Well,
unless those are like horns coming out of its head, or A crown.
Could just mean the sun is the key to some puzzle here, and so he doesn't want them paying attention to it.
So
Right.
this is one of the rooms where people were finding other bowls.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, I suggested there was an upside down bowl in the sun's face, but I suggested that sort of as a reductio ad absurdum of the room 43 bull's head. But
I can kind of see one here, but it's not that convincing.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Could be.
well, my point was that this one was fake, but it looked as good as the other one that was supposed to be real. So they should both be regarded as fake, but
Well, I mean, it leads to the trap, and it's a sun, but you could see it as a false sun, and it's in a starry sky, and Asterion means the starry one.
yeah, it would be nice if there were a bull's head there. It would be kind of cool.
All right, so we're thinking that bull's head is probably intended. I'm getting out of this.
That's
Well, that's
not
a good
my
find. So now that we've solved room 4,
Hold on, there's one more clue in here to the Minotaur. If
Okay.
you look in the doorway to room 43, there's a maze in there.
Yes,
The Minotaur lived in a maze.
huh?
that's a good point. It does lead to the trap. So I think we could see anything as leading to the trap as being possibly guide related, right? I mean, that's sort of his goal. Our goal is to get to the middle and out. His goal is to get everyone into the trap.
Get to the middle and back to 1, you know. It's not to beat a dead horse, but you can't actually get out. There's no escape.
I don't know if I buy that.
Well, when you get back to room 1, what options do you have there? You have the same options you got the first time you were there.
Yeah, you can't go back to the prologue.
Well, maybe you
When
could
you go back to
consider.
room 1, you don't get new text saying, wow, we made it to the center and then we got back out. Time to leave.
Okay, but instead of having over the door like a number or something, the exterior door is an opening, suggesting that you can get out.
Well,
No,
if so, there's a
Well,
lot
what else do you want?
doorways.
Like, there's not going to be something saying prologue.
no, it would have been easy. You put an exit door on one of the rooms. You have a special room, and it has some text that suggests, all right, they reached the point where like those who had solved the puzzle were able to move through and get their reward or whatever, and those who tried to leave here and failed, met their fate or whatever. Like the text is ambiguous as to which one you are, but just indicates, this is what happened when people went through that door.
So you're
Like-
saying the instructions would not be get back to 1, it would be get out somehow.
Yeah, if you could get out, but you can't. There's no getting out.
I disagree.
Like we're never given an end state with victory here.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we shouldn't identify so closely with the people who are going through the maze, because we're not them. They're not us.
Mhm.
We are flipping through the book trying to solve a puzzle. They are just a story within the book. They never get out.
Yes, we're supposed to figure out the route that they could have taken to get out, but didn't.
Well, they could have just left anyway. I mean,
They
what
could
do
have, but they didn't.
I mean, we're interested in the riddle of the maze and the answer and all that stuff, but what do these people care about any of that? Like, what good does it even do them to find that stuff?
They could have won like $10,000.
Yeah, they have no motivation.
Yeah, I don't think this stuff is just
Because it's there.
it's just doesn't the narrative doesn't work on that level.
Right.
It's a mistake for us to try to identify with those kids who are maybe not kids.
I don't think they're kids.
They
I think they're
absolutely are.
clean.
Okay, here we go. The tree room. This is
Okay, now are these real?
Well, there's real as anything else in the maze.
Okay.
so they don't I don't think there's anything in the text really about the guide except for he's talking about, oh, well, unless you think about what he tells you about the number of doors, and then you count the doors and realize it's wrong.
Interestingly, that number of doors that he gives argues against him being the character from House of Asterion, because the highest number he used was 14.
Right. That's a weird thing. Because you read it and it says 14, and then there's like a footnote that says infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it explains that from the Minotaur's other, but that's weird. They write the footnote as if this is like a real document they encountered, but like Asterion clearly couldn't have written it down because Asterion is illiterate. That's kind of a weird thing Borges did there.
Yeah,
it's weird.
A footnote as if someone else has discovered this document, and they even say like, "There's good reason to think that Asterion means infinite by 14 because da 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 da." But you know, your subterfuge isn't really working here, Borges, because we know this wasn't really written by the Minotaur. You kind of showed your hand on that one.
the whole thing up.
This isn't the real Minotaur's words at all. No, the only thing I see here is where he says that the trees are as real as anything else here. I guess just suggests that everything here is fake, because not everything in the maze is real. So if everything here is reality, then I guess they're all unreal. No, I guess if you say they're as real as anything else, if you say they're as real as anything else, would you take that to mean that there's nothing more real than they are, or that everything is equally real?
The former.
Okay.
Is how I would
So there's still
read it.
That's less real, but you just say they're as real as anything else.
Right.
I guess I read it to mean more like connotatively dismissing the idea that you should care about realness within the house.
Yeah. Not as real as anything else in here. All right. I got enough.
All right.
Wait, are there any branching bits on the trees here that look like bowls?
Yeah, all of them.
Okay, good. So let's mark that down and move on.
1,000 balls in that room.
Okay. Oh, here we are in room 6.
It's a good one.
Big room.
Okay, let's read this one. A gloomy, cave-like place far underground. Even I was oppressed by the weight that hung over our heads. A very
so even I. So Minotaur is somebody who normally wouldn't mind a weight hanging over his head.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. That's something we read before. Like it was suggestive of Atlas or something, because but I mean there just aren't any other clues to support that. But it is a weird thing. I guess it's not supposed to focus so much on the idea of weight being over their heads, but just like, hey, I'm the guide, I hang out in this place all the time, and even I was oppressed by all that weight over our heads.
Right.
So not as much of a clue as you want to read it to be, maybe.
Okay. This is a place for another one of the ones I have that you're going to hate. A very small hole high above emitted a feeble light. So that's...
I'm dreading this style already.
Good. So another name for an architectural feature, which is like a hole in the ceiling that lets in light, right? I think one of the names for it is an oculus, but apparently another name for it is a bullseye.
Huh. Didn't know that.
Yep. So I don't know. My theory is that Manson, I think, went and looked for and thought about all different things that would have to do with the bull and bull parts, and he tried to fit those in because he thought that would be fun.
It was never like that.
You don't think he might have done that?
It seems like a reasonable thing to do if you're making a puzzle book, to hide to somebody being a Minotaur.
Okay, let's finish reading it. Standing in the light, one of them put his hand out. I think it may be raining out there. They didn't like the look of the place. You continue to judge everything by the way it looks, I cried, exasperated by their timidity. I knew I shouldn't have said...
Like judging him by the fact that he looks like a Minotaur.
I'll just finish and then we can talk about it. If you think of all the deceptions practiced in my family, particularly on my father, we went down the only way open to us and came to.
That's just a strange sequence of sentences there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what?
You continue to judge everything by the way it looks. I shouldn't have said that. My father got deceived by bunches of stuff. What the hell are they talking about? I mean, I know he's thinking it internally, but if you vocalize that whole sequence there, it's just such nonsense.
Like,
would you stop judging things by the way it looks? Never mind. My father had sex with a bull. No, I mean, his father was the bull. What am I
Father
talking
was the bull.
his father was tricked into having sex with a human.
Yeah, which is, from a bull's perspective, the humans are the real bulls.
Yeah. Like, the bull was the real victim there.
Everyone.
Just the bull.
Okay, just the bull.
That's what I got out of the story.
Well, Daedalus had forced to make a bull sex machine.
I think he
was proud of
enjoyed the challenge.
Was he forced to, or did he do it,
It was his
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, I don't know, but he got punished for it pretty severely.
That was also part of his job. His job was to build amazing things and then be mistreated for it.
It's funny though. There's sort of a feeling of a contraption down here with all this sort of makeshift stuff going on.
Wait, what stuff? This looks like a kind of a basement with rubble in it.
I guess some of those stone slabs kind of look like the top of a waffle maker.
I'm just trying to do a reading where this room can represent the the cow costume.
Oh, it doesn't.
No.
I mean, I guess that windy cavern there could be a bull vagina. A bull vagina.
I was probably not a bull vagina.
Vagina that the Minotaur's father was forced to have sex with. Daedalus at gunpoint. Oh, man.
Oh, hey, here's another bull.
What? Wait, what are you... Matt, are you drawing a penis?
No, it's a
Please
bull.
tell me you're drawing a penis. I will have so much more respect. No!
No.
That's why there's that eye on the sign. It's telling you to look for a bull right there.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, so we've got that notice again. We talked about that before.
Right.
Well, the keystone back there in the little archway has a little bit of a monstery look on it, right?
I was considering saying that looks like a bullhead, just to bug you.
Well, yeah, I don't think it does very much, but it does more than most bullheads that aren't bullheads.
It does less than that one in the Upside Down Sun.
Oh, look at that. Looks exactly like a bull. It's looks just like the bull I get my milk from every morning.
Okay. Do we have anything else to say about 6?
Surprisingly, no. It seems like
I bet there'd be more.
Yeah, considering we spent like 2 hours on the prologue, you'd think we'd have something to say.
There's a lot going on.
The room with a sign about the guide's identity in it, but
okay. So did everyone
giving it away is torn off
and thinking about the identity of the guide, kind of try to write Minotaur, to see if it would fit.
Yeah, I'll fit.
Draw that in.
It really just doesn't make sense who would put that notice up and why it's still there.
It doesn't even really look like it was just torn away. It looks like it's just worn away with time, because it's
maybe the guy
burned.
Hair.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Next. Room 7. Oh, this is a good one too. Here we go.
That's good.
Do you want to read this, Diane?
Sure. A pleasant room with 3 doors and a lamp. Looking at the picture on the wall, they decided it wasn't a very good likeness.
Okay, so that's
The mirror.
frequently interpreted to suggest that one of these pictures is a picture of the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and one of these is a mirror with bull horns on top.
Yeah, which is not a good likeness because whenever they look at it, it just looks like them.
Well, no, whenever they look at it, they see themselves backwards, which is the complete opposite.
Mm. But you got a dude with a crown there, so I think that misleads you into thinking like maybe that's the guide, but it's not. And then there's just a shitty drawing of that. So
Well, why are the visitors expecting that one of these pictures will be an attempt to portray the guide?
well, it would have to.
Looks like the guide, but looks like a bad drawing of him.
Yeah, that's what it would have to be. It would have to look enough like him they can tell it's supposed to be him, but not a very good drawing of him.
Well, okay, one way to have that would be if the guide has a bull head and you see a picture of somebody with a bull head who doesn't quite look like him. It's pretty obvious that you're trying to draw this one guy who has a bull head.
Yeah, I agree.
So there you go. That bit in the text here is cluing the fact that the guide is somebody with a bull head.
Hold on, I gotta go check on my kids. This sounds like they're killing each other.
Okay.
Looks like Sarah's muted too. So
No,
take it away.
all right, well, don't worry, I'll take care of this while you guys are away. One of them almost fell over something on the floor. Why don't they pick up after themselves? He said, sounding like an old man. Maybe I should put that in more of an old man voice, but I don't care. Weren't you ever irresponsible? I asked, thinking of my childhood and how wild I had been. Music was being played somewhere nearby. We stopped to listen for a moment. Leaving the pictures looking out at an empty room, we went on to... And I've just gotten a message from Sarah saying that her kids is sick, just checking in on them, so she'll be back in a bit. Sit tight, Mazecast viewers and listeners. I haven't forgotten you either. So the clear reference to the guide's history as the Minotaur is this part talking about his childhood and how wild he had been. Yeah, Minotaur was wild. It was this bull monster who had to be trapped in a maze and given people to kill. So, though, taking that literally kind of conflicts with the view we're trying to get here of the guide as sort of a cultured Minotaur who shows people through the maze. The sort of genteel aspect to him, despite being extremely sinister about it. We have first reference to the Minotaur liking music. That'll come back later on. I'm not sure if that really relates to any stories. It's been a while since I've read King Must Die. I don't really think of that as much of a Minotaur trait. Now, looking at the picture of this room, bullhorns on that frame leaning forward that pretty much jumps out at you if you're looking for Minotaur things, at least. And I called that a mirror before, but it's not entirely clear that that's what it is. Could be a blank picture frame. Could be just we've got an angle where we can't really see what's going on, although that would be a questionable artistic choice. I think it being a mirror is fairly likely. But then what are we supposed to make from this? The reason that it has bullhorns is that makes it a clue for the guide, because if you imagine the guide looking in it, he'll have bullhorns. But he doesn't ordinarily, so a regular mirror wouldn't do that. Like maybe the idea here is the guide is the Minotaur, but in some humanoid aspect where he doesn't look like he has a bull head. But then when he looks into this mirror, his true identity is revealed. He is a normal-looking person with bullhorns on top. It's kind of a bizarre way to indicate it, but I think that might be what was going on here. I think that's about it for Minotaur indications on this page. I guess, well, there's the guy with the crown given the bottom left there, but to be honest, that isn't very compelling to me. So let's move on to page 8. This is an interesting one. A vaulted chamber lit by a single bulb. I'm not going to read the rest of this. I think that's about it for Minotaur clues here. Talking about specifically the fact that this is a vaulted chamber, which I'm not going to look it up right now, but I think Minoan architecture had a lot of vaulted stone spaces like this. Now you're going to have to either imagine art room 8 or follow along in your paper copies of Maze, because without Sarah here, I'm not able to advance the slideshow. But I can describe it for you. Room 8 is the one that's sort of askew. The whole room is tilted at an angle. It's unclear to what extent that's an artistic choice by Manson or whether the room itself is angled. Only the objects on the floor are scattered about as though they've fallen towards the part that's sloping down to. Now, the walls themselves are stone blocks with some pillars regularly spaced. Again, has sort of a Greek Minoan aspect to it. There's nothing more specific than that here that suggests the Minotaur to me. Well, I've had all sorts of bad interpretations of the objects on the floor, but I think that's about it. So let's move on to room 9.
Did we talk about the Picasso picture?
Yes.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, I think I've done all rooms 7 and 8.
Oh, 7 and 8? Okay.
You did 8 too?
Yeah, we're on to room 9 now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the listeners and I had a good moment there.
So we did talk about like the Minotaur stuff and Picasso etchings and things?
Yeah.
Let's just trust that Diane knows what she's doing.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Diane, for taking over.
All right, room 9. It's like what appeared to be an old storeroom. Dust obscured a damaged painting, making it hard to understand just what the artist had intended. Do we want to stop and talk about the painting here or finish the text?
Let's finish the text.
Because I don't think the rest of the text matters anyway, and then we can get to talking about the painting. I'm going to have to get my book out.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
It's okay, I got it.
There you go.
I got it.
A trick of some sort, one said.
Who's going to read this one?
You might be going around in circles. I don't think so, said the thoughtful one.
Listen to her Maze voice.
I think we're supposed to think it's a trick. That's the trick. They all looked at me. Yes, I said. I'm sure you're right about that. With doubtful looks, they left for...
All right. So...
I'm trying to do character voices there to help the listeners get into it.
Thanks, Diane.
Something to keep them engaged in the third hour of our...
Oh, wow.
I hope we're not actually that far into it, but I don't know. I've been paying attention.
It's been over an hour.
Has it?
Okay.
Jeez.
We're almost done.
We're almost a fifth of the way through here. Okay. So the only thing here that seems guidey is that you got this damaged painting in the center where it looks like a Greek-ish warrior maybe engaged in battle with someone or something. Because the painting's on the other side. So,
like the damaged painting, the issue with us not being able to see it isn't that it's covered in dust.
Right. So, that could be
torn down and pulled over itself.
Well, I think that's deliberately ambiguous so that you don't know for sure which painting it's referring to.
Yeah.
Because all the other paintings are at least partially obscured by big piles of dirt.
Mm-hmm. I noticed there's this painting of a blind mouse, and if
Yeah.
the visitors to the maze are themselves blind, that would explain why they didn't see that the guide is a Minotaur.
There's another one for your towels as well, Diane?
Oh, good.
Over on the floor.
You mean the shovel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and there's the painting where you could see, I don't know, is it a sun? Is it the sun? Is it a star?
Thing.
And a house of mysterious.
Nah.
I know it's
All right, so room 10.
Yep. Room 10.
Sure know how to end a room.
This one doesn't have any Minotaur stuff.
Probably not. I don't see anything in the text that's Minotauri. I don't see
It's
anything
like an anagram I'm not seeing.
Minotauri.
Oh, this is my worst one.
Oh,
What?
you
So
sold here.
so room, door 14, that leads you to a very dangerous room where you're likely to end up in the trap. And you have these two dancers, right? And so that connects in a couple ways to the Minotaur. One of them is the bull dancers, right, of Knossos, that were supposed to be like maybe part of the source of the Minotaur myth. So that's one thing for dancers.
Just to interrupt for a second, the bull dancers are a major part of The King Must Die. The bull dancing
Yes.
is a... Yeah, okay, go ahead.
That's a big thing. Yeah, that's a big thing. That's a real thing.
Okay, so the dancers here suggest bull dancing and therefore the Minotaur.
Right, exactly. And then so we have a ballet dancer on top, and she's got her arms in the shape of horns. And then we have a tap dancer on the bottom, and another name for a tap dancer is a hoofer.
Yeah.
Next room.
Did the Minotaur have hooves?
Maybe.
No, but a bull does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes some drawings of him you see hooves, but I mean, I guess he's supposed to only have a bull head, so.
Well, sometimes it's a bull's body with a human head.
That's true. Yeah, I think the etchings for Dante's Inferno have it that way.
Oh, really?
I think he's described that way in the Inferno, actually.
All right.
Anyway.
11. Does this have any Minotaur stuff?
Well, it says that he didn't like confinement.
Yeah, okay, that's important.
Yep.
This is the version of the Minotaur who doesn't like being in a maze, as opposed to the version of the Minotaur we've been seeing on every other page so far.
Yeah, so the only relevant part of the text here, I think, is it was a big space, but I still felt crowded. I've always hated confinement. Minotaur, little known fact about the Minotaur, he lived in a maze. And,
but he liked that, right?
Well, it depends on the version of the story. Sometimes he liked it, sometimes he didn't.
I mean, if he's really just a monster, it's sort of, whether he likes it or not is kind of irrelevant.
Somebody else decided to put him there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on.
For assistance, please ring bell. Like a cowbell.
There's a trefoil.
No.
Nope, there isn't.
There isn't even a trefoil.
All you have to do is close up a little tiny gap mentally.
All you have to do is add one line and ignore a bunch of others, and then all of a sudden...
Trefoil is a shape that you can draw. Manson could have drawn an actual one.
Yeah, but that would have been too easy.
If he had actually made this form a trefoil, I still wouldn't be convinced, but it would be something.
Well, there's a trefoil in 10. We forgot to talk about that.
Nope, nobody forgot.
Wait, where?
I forgot.
I know what you mean in 10.
You don't know what I mean in 10?
I know what you mean.
Oh, okay. All right.
We've covered it. We talked about for a few minutes there.
Only real trefoil, right?
It's the only really unambiguous one.
It's the only non-metaphorical trefoil.
Right, so the theory here is that bit on the frame of the bed represents Cerberus because it has 3 lobes.
No.
And therefore, when the guide says they should call me Cerberus, he means there's this room with a bed frame with this little 3-lobed design on it, and that bed has a clue to my identity. That's why I'm saying they should call me Cerberus.
So hopefully that puts all questions as to the guide's identity to
Yeah,
bed.
and that's why the guide is given.
Wah, wah.
We can probably handle 12 and 28 at the same time.
Do you want to do
Who?
28 first and then 12?
Sure. Nothing here.
No.
Well, we've got that, but you know what I say about appearances thing.
Oh, sure.
Right.
That does follow up on the thing with the guide talking about appearances being misleading, and when he thinks about all the deceptions on his father.
Yeah. This is another room with some Greek stuff in it, architecturally.
Yeah.
And
Some horns.
yeah,
Look at them all.
it's a traditional Minotaur ram horns.
Okay. So can we say that there's not
Corinthian or Minotaurian?
You got that dude with the forked beard. If you turn his head upside down, it looks like a bull. I'm guessing because everything does.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
Here we go, room 13. This is a good one.
Ooh.
Is it?
Well, we've got a bullhorn.
Yeah.
That's good.
Bullhorn is good.
That's about it, right?
Okay, that's it.
I mean, we don't really need to get into maze time here.
Yeah. Not relevant to the guy.
I've been mocking the guests a little. Nice.
Yeah, I don't see anything else here.
No. Okay, 14.
So this one has some new evidence about whether or not they're children.
Right. Okay, should we... All right, I'll read this. One of the biggest rooms in the house. All 3 doorways were dark. Afraid to go out, I asked. Since they tried to think of themselves as adults, they didn't care for my question. Not really, said the thoughtful one, but that doesn't mean we have to go running around out there just to prove something to you. I knew she would bear watching. Choose then, I cried, as if my feelings were hurt. Pay no attention to anything I say. Or not to listen to me entirely. They were so easily led. Turning around, the group took a path that completely surprised me after all, and I followed them too.
Okay, so maybe they're not so easily led.
So we do have a bullseye here.
Yeah, a definite bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
Will you admit that, Vincent?
Yes.
Will you also admit that there are 3 things in it?
There are at least 3 things in it.
Okay, therefore Minotaur.
Just like the Minotaur's true eye.
So since they tried to think of themselves as adults, I mean, if you believe the guide, that suggests that they're children again.
Right.
They're young adults, and the guide thinks of them as kids.
Right.
It could be, or maybe because the Minotaur is centuries old, he sees all humans as children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good, stupid explanation for how they could be adults. I had to say the three fingers there, like this is one of the places that give me pause. It makes me think that there's some relevance to the number 3 here.
Mhm.
Independent of this trefoil nonsense. Like
I don't know. If you just draw a bunch of stuff, there's probably going to be a lot of 3s showing up. It's a small common number. Like, Vincent's muted. I think I'd be checking out the kids.
Oh, is
Again.
he? Okay. The stuff about paying no attention to anything I say, they couldn't afford not to listen to me entirely. I mean, I think that's probably just more of Manson cluing us as to the guide not being truthful.
Right, but
not being entirely
because
truthful.
The clues in this aren't entirely trustworthy. You do still have to rely on them to some extent, otherwise you got nothing.
It's all we have. Yeah. All right, should we move on to 15?
Sure.
Yep. Blazing trail.
Yeah, that's one of the ones where the text is very perplexing.
Yeah, who wants to read this?
Do we need? Is this the room where we should read the whole thing?
I'll read the important part.
Okay.
At least 3 of us can sit down here, said one. There were only 3 possible choices. And already it's kind of confusing what's going on here because the picture shows one chair occupied by a rabbit and one, I guess, sacrificial tripod is what we're supposed to call it, with a hat in it. It's odd how they'd get the idea that this is a spot for 3 people to sit down. Let's see, then the guide gives away a hint and then says, immediately I regretted this act of charity. Sometimes I think, after all these years, that I don't really know myself. I think that's an important part. First of all, the after all these years thing suggests that the guide is in fact quite old. Also, we have to know thyself bit.
Yeah, I think that's the fact that it suggests he's very old. I think is the only real part that relates to his identity. The rest of it, I think, is just Oracle Delphi. But there's that means there's some Greek stuff going on here in this room.
Yeah.
Well, there is my pet theory about House of Asterion here. Because, so we have all that stuff about know thyself connected with the suggesting that there is something about this tripod that could tell us something about the guide. We have a house shape, and we have a star shape.
It's the House of Asterion.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And there is a crumbly drawn house up there to suggest the idea of a sort of childish depiction of a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I would not put past Manson to clue House of Asterion by having a picture of a house on the wall and then having a star hidden inside the sacrificial tripod.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of thing that he thinks is a puzzle.
Guys, I think this has got like more than my usual beat to it, especially because it's...
No, I'm serious.
That was a dig at Manson.
Thing Manson would do.
Yeah, that was a dig at Manson, not at your theory.
Oh, okay. I'm not used to that.
We're all on the same side here.
All right. Anything else here?
Well, we've got a list of Greek myth heroes.
Yeah, including Theseus.
Maybe that's a list of people who the guide hates. They come across the room where he keeps his enemy list.
And Theseus is third on the list?
He really hates
It's not order. He's just... It's not ranked. This is just the order they came to mind when he was brainstorming enemies.
Still, how is Theseus not number 1?
Right. Maybe in this timeline, Theseus hasn't actually shown up yet.
Maybe he doesn't want it to go to Theseus's head. Like, he doesn't want Theseus to think he's that important.
Oh, right. Like in the Lego Batman
Yeah.
movie.
I've never seen it, but yes, that's what it's like.
I haven't seen it either.
You're not missing anything.
I'm going to trust you.
Okay. All right, should we move on? This is a good
Yes.
one.
Good big one. Come
16, well, there's not much in 16. I want to just move to 17.
Okay. A stone chamber, which reminded me of my old neighbors. Of course, that was a long time ago now, but would you believe their descendants are still telling stories about me and my family to their children? Even if the stories are lies and exaggerations, it is immortality of a sort. As I passed in front of an open doorway, a figure crossing the hall outside saw me and immediately ran off. Who was that? They asked. Another visitor, to be sure. Why did he run away? You probably scared him, I said, and they apparently believed me. With few regrets on my part, we left for.
All right, so this tells us a lot of things. First of all, it's another instance of the guide being kind of scary to look at to people in the know.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I think this page is Manson's justification for why this Minotaur isn't exactly like the Minotaur we're used to from myth. Saying that those stories are full of lies and exaggeration.
Oh.
Yes, I agree. Well, at least, I mean, for saying why this Minotaur is so different from what you might expect from the Minotaur, but also probably providing some justification for, why no one notices that he's the Minotaur and that kind of stuff. But it does give him a lot of room to sort of invent the character and do whatever he wants with it, to have this page where he's just like, yeah, all those stories you've heard, that's all a bunch of bunk.
Yeah, it's about the Minotaur from Greek myth. He knows that Greek myth is a thing that people are still talking about, but yeah, it's not exactly like that.
So he says the room reminds him of his neighbors, and there are a few different ways to take that. The thing is, as the Minotaur living in Crete in the labyrinth, I don't think that there's going to be much in here that is like suggestive of like Minoan culture or anything. Like, I don't think this is about actual people who lived in proximity to the labyrinth. If it's about people on Crete, I assume it's like the machine reminds them of Daedalus, and like something reminds him of the people who are actually connected to him in the myth. Not that this reminds him of the inhabitants of Crete. I guess I don't know why I make that assumption other than
his neighbors were Greeks in general.
Well, that was the next thing.
Then
Yeah, that it's not like his literal neighbors, but it's people from the neighboring country of Greece.
Excuse me.
Which Orson, it was a Greek. That's about it.
Could just be the architect.
I'm not going to get into the beehive tombs because we've talked about it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have to do with the Minotaur?
Well, it has to do with the neighbor thing, maybe.
Oh.
If what he's talking about is the shape of the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Got crown again.
Sure.
We're going to keep seeing those.
So
Jester hat that looks like horns.
the machine represents Daedalus because he was the inventor, and then
because it's a machine.
And the jester is Icarus because Icarus was the fool who flew too high, and the crown there represents Minos because he was the king, and then that perforated party hat suggests Pasiphae because she was like some kind of a jizz bucket or something.
Oh, Vincent.
Well,
it suggests, it's like a party hat suggests a condom. It has holes in it because she wanted to get pregnant.
Okay,
it's a holy hat. Isn't there some kind of priest we can ascribe that to instead?
No, this is about Pasiphae and having being doused with semen at every inch of her body.
This is a family show, Vincent.
Well, I didn't write the book.
It's just about deliberate pregnancy.
Yeah. Sure. Diane keeps
That you-
saying what I'm trying to say in a more classy fashion. I guess I should just let her explain about how this is about the multifaceted violation of Pasiphae. But
It's the best explanation for the machine I've ever heard. It's not saying a lot.
who is Orson there though? Like Orson's not Orson. Orson's not a neighbor of the Minotaur.
Right.
So who does that actually relate to in the Minotaur myth?
In a way, his neighbors were like Orson. So seeing Orson reminds him of them.
Maybe Orson is himself.
Why would he be himself, though?
It seems like Theseus is the main, missing character in this story here.
Maybe Orson is Theseus, and it's like sort of derogatory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That barefooted hillbilly.
Yeah.
Came in my house and beat me to death with a club. He does have a club in some depictions of the fight. You've seen those.
Yeah, it's not clear what weapon he has, if any. You see lots of different depictions.
So that's why this room is the Minotaur.
This room is the Minotaur.
It is the Minotaur. Okay, let's move on. 45.
Anything here from anybody? I don't see anything.
The only thing I have is that the floor of sand, something like that, is mentioned in House of Asterion.
Oh yeah, good point. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember exactly what he said. Something about.
He just makes reference.
It's when he's doing the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. Now you will see a pool that was filled with sand. So it's pretty tenuous, but still, it's kind of an evocative image that maybe Manson would have liked.
Yeah, this is another one of those things where it's like, if he went this far, why didn't he go all the way if this is what's going on? Like, there's not that much stuff mentioned in House of Asterion. Like, if he was really this heavily influenced, he could have put everything from House of Asterion in here.
Mm-hmm.
But he just left out some of the more obvious things that were mentioned in there, especially because the story makes such a point of there being no furniture in the house.
Right.
Maybe that tied his hands too much with the way he wanted to design the house and have some of the rooms look. But it seems like if you were really that heavily influenced by the story, you would have left furniture out of the house. But I don't know. I guess that story was just an exaggeration of the reality of the Minotaur.
Well, it's just one ingredient. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Okay. And, pictures of the sun in here again. What's the relevance of the sun? Why is the sun so emphasized? Who knows? But it's a House of Asterion thing, at least.
Yeah, we do keep seeing, like, Greek architecture and suns.
Mm-hmm.
Very good link.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Room 18.
I don't think there's anything in the text.
Well, you know how I was talking about how Minotaur has Tau in it?
Uh-huh.
If you take that out, what you're left with is minor.
Like a minor key?
Yeah.
Does that apply to the stuff here?
I don't know.
But it's a music thing.
We don't know what key these things are in because there's no. Can't see the signature.
I'm just.
Okay, so this is another hidden bowl that I think is here.
Oh my god!
But not really. Well, it explains the stupid dragon shape. Look, see, these are the bowl nostrils.
Yeah.
What?
There's the eyes, right? The eyes are the eyes.
I think I see what you're getting at.
And then here's the horns. the mouth is actually horns. And actually, the interesting thing about these horns is it looks like the horns at Knossos, this really stylized horns that are like a big sort of statue thing at Knossos.
Yeah, I'm not sold on how the nose looks. Like the
I think that's the part that totally sells it. Like, and look, there's this sort of.
No, I meant how the right side up nose looks when you turn it upside down.
Oh.
It's kind of an odd.
I don't know. That just kind of turns into a furrowed brow for me. Anyway.
I see what you're getting at here. I don't know.
I'm not at all convinced that it was intentional, but it's kind of fun.
I thought that the dragon could have been made to suggest the bottom of that better.
You know, it does look like then there's fire coming out of his eyes with those eyebrows.
That's true.
It's actually like there's fire about 6 inches from his eyes, but it's pretty close to having fire in your eyes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you saw somebody with flames pouring out of their eyebrows, you might very well say that they had fire in their eyes.
I would not.
There's the fire in his eyes. It's right there.
Well, I probably would if I weren't thinking about it, but I also said that the Minotaur's father was forced to have sex with a bull. So I don't do well under pressure.
All right, that's what I got in here.
I like it.
Thanks. Okay.
Let's
Next.
see.
Oh,
Night is all about Christopher Manson himself.
Right.
All right. This is a room we're going to discuss heavily when we do a show on anagrams of Christopher Manson, which I don't think we're going to get to tonight since this show is going to last approximately 14 hours.
We're nearly half done.
Keep in mind that by 14, I mean infinite.
Right.
But I don't know of anything here that's particularly guidey.
No, I think this one is all about Manson.
Yeah, I agree.
She did look him right in
There's
the
some weird flower stuff.
But the guy does something polite here.
And he does have at least one eye, this tells us.
Yeah, and this visitor was able to look him in the eye and still not freak out about seeing a Minotaur.
Yeah. But she was probably distracted by other things like a child. Like so many children.
Like so many children.
Like children, they soon became restless and impatient.
Maybe they are children, but the guide was just saying that they were so
like children.
They were so lost in thought. It was like they were twice as many children.
I don't know. I don't think they're children.
Room 20.
Okay.
Room
number 20. The ringing stopped as soon as we entered. Actually, I don't think we need to read this one.
No.
Oh, well, too many animals for a proper house. You're right.
Yeah. And the guide's a little simpatico with this tortoise.
True.
A little suggestive of the Brotherhood of Animals.
It's like the Minotaur really got along with tortoises.
It's a well-known fact.
Well, he lived on an island. It's just implied that he'd get along well with like turtles and crabs and stuff like that.
In a way, the labyrinth that the Minotaur was in was sort of his shell.
Yeah. It's just like the turtle carries his house around with him. The Minotaur also has a house. Yeah.
It's beautiful, you guys.
Right, so the turtle is here to clue that the guide is currently inside a house.
No, the point is the turtle can't leave his house, just like the Minotaur couldn't leave his, except in this version of the story he can.
Okay, and now the objects we see in this room, we've got telephone, tower, turbine, other tower, Everything starts with T, and as you know, there is a T in Minotaur.
Yeah.
So
It's a piece of the puzzle.
Okay,
and
21.
use T to stand in for Minotaur in general as a sort of abbreviation or rebus.
Did you really not have a Minotaur rebus in that room, Sarah? Feel like we had.
Oh, I had all kinds of like weird chest stuff in this room, but I don't think I have any
It's gonna
Minotaur
be
things.
something about man and tower, man.
Oh my god, I forgot about all those things. You're
Yeah,
right.
Minotaur, Minotaur.
Oh man, we missed all those things.
Man.
Oh, we have to go back. We have to start again. There's no other way.
So that guy with the turban, he's looking at the tower, and if he's really into it, that makes him a man-o-tower.
A Minotaur. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Man.
yeah. Damn.
No, what I see what it is they're trying to draw a contrast between those two paintings. They're trying to tell you it's man, not tower.
Man, not tower. Very good.
Man, not tower.
Oh god.
You don't want to be struck by lightning.
The Greeks were pretty loose about their vowels. Just keep that in mind. When you're trying to do Greek wordplay, consonants matter, vowels don't.
Like you
Right.
only write the consonants.
I think the one I had in mind was in number 9 was like minor tour or something like that. It's something to do with miners because they're talking with the workmen who are digging down. It looks like a mine. Oh man. Okay, it's just as well. 21? Anyone?
Yeah, okay, so 21. A yard containing shrubs trimmed in ornamental shapes. This, I began, is called... We know what the name is, they interrupted. Why don't you just tell us which way to go? I wasn't referring to the plants, I said in a huff. I refused to say anything else, leaving them to find their own way to. So the implication here is that the guide was about to say, this is called the Garden of the Minotaur. Actually, do we have any ideas about what he was actually starting to talk about?
No.
Okay.
I almost said no as soon as you said, do we have any ideas?
We do have ideas about this room.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some good ideas about this room, but there's no good ideas for what the name is referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, move on.
This is called Turning Back. Yeah, it doesn't have anything Minotaur specific.
Oh, 22 is a good one.
Oh, 22 is a real good one.
This is super weird. Okay, I got a gaudy room that reminded me of a theatrical backdrop. Places like this are overdone for my taste, but some people like the exotic. Well, everyone is a critic. It's true, I am by nature... I'll just finish and then we can talk. I am by nature extremely critical. Although my life is a lonely one, I have not spared any of my guests the rigor of my judgment. We all have our roles to play. This is not a bad place, really. One could spend quite some time here. However, in the rest of way, the group moved on to.
So, wait, some people like exotic things. Well, everyone's a critic.
Some people like exotic things. Well, my father was deceived a lot.
Yeah, it really seems like Manson's trying to force in some clues about the guide there.
Yeah, but it's pretty misleading.
I don't know whether we've talked about this before. I don't know whether it's misleading or if it's supposed to suggest that due to his relation to Minos, who was famous for his great judgment, that he does have some inherited judge skills.
Right, by nature.
English.
Well,
except that he's not related to Minos.
Traditionally, the Minotaur's judgment was that he killed anybody who came into his maze.
Well, they all deserved it.
Yeah.
Just like a real judge.
The only one who passed the judgment was Theseus.
Yeah. Well, it's another case where, like, we have to say that, okay, the traditional myth is not quite right. It's been exaggerated and da 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 da. So his father really was Minos, not some bull. And so he could have inherited this judgmental quality and blah, blah, blah. But of course, that doesn't really align with other stuff suggesting that he is part animal. So I don't know. Although even King Minos was sired by Zeus when Zeus is in the form of a bull, right? So I don't know if that affects his offspring to give them qualities. What's that?
It's just coincidentally sired by somebody in bull form. Completely separate from this bull stuff that happens later.
But in any case, I think we have to kind of regard the guide's background a little nebulously and just accept it.
And it goes back
anything that's sort of associated with the Minotaur is okay. And so his father was a great judge. Although I think some versions of the Minotaur
make up a distant story about this alternate Minotaur's adventures. He's trying to write a puzzle book with a bunch of Minotaur illusions of various forms.
Yeah.
We can't really criticize him for that. That's a reasonable way to go about it.
So to get back to the 5-second summary that I should have stuck with, it's just we don't know whether this is like misleading us to think about Minos or whether it's just suggesting that the Minotaur had some Minoan qualities due to his, relationship to Minos. So I don't know.
The lonely thing is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's a lonely life.
There's maybe like Poseidon's trident there that could be a reference.
Poseidon or what?
Well, Poseidon was his grandfather, I guess, sort of.
Poseidon
didn't Poseidon make the white bull?
Yes.
Oh, right, yeah.
Well, and Poseidon is also the father of Theseus, who,
right.
I don't know how to finish that. He killed the Minotaur. I guess I don't know why that's relevant, but he's part of the story.
Yeah.
Right.
Poseidon has relevance, a lot of relevance to the Minotaur and the Minotaur story, I guess is the way to look at that.
We have a sign with a picture of a bull's tail.
Judgment.
Yep, another bull part. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Did I cut out there?
I don't know. I'm not sure if you were saying something. There was a moment of silence.
There's a sign with a picture of a bull's tail.
Oh, yeah, we heard that.
Okay. There's a lot of silence after that.
We were awestruck.
I think that's impressive.
Never noticed
a sign in this room with a picture of bull scales.
All right, move on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I was wondering whether we could get out of there without you talking about trefoil.
No, I'm giving up on trefoil.
That room didn't have a trefoil.
We talked about it other times. It's fine.
Okay.
Oh, the shoulder room.
Oh, yeah, I got something great in here.
I do too. Great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, should we read it?
You want me to read it?
Sure.
A room with 3 other doors. Looking out the windows, my feet crushed something on the floor. Watch your step here, I warned them. I'm always ready to be helpful with the less important things. Look at those 2 trees out there, one said, looking over my shoulder, which is not easy to do. Must be a real wind coming up. Now they realized that could rain where they were going. We should have brought that bumbershoot with us from the coat room. Which room was that? You remember the one with the animal? I suggested that we take the door on my right. and they realized they had found the door they had been seeking for so long, the entrance to... So a lot going on here. First, there's a reference to looking over the guide's shoulder not being easy to do.
But they do manage to do it.
Giant Minotaur.
Isn't it? It seems like either you could look over someone's shoulder or you can't.
Well, maybe you have to lean a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a medium, but all right, whatever.
Go on tiptoes. Okay, so you want to hear my crazy thing?
Yes.
Okay, so the door to 45, we've got 7 stars, right? And there's 7 stars in the cluster of stars called the Pleiades, right? And they're also called the 7 sisters. And the 7 sisters is located on the shoulder of the constellation Taurus.
Huh.
That's interesting.
That's my thing in here.
Now wait. Is the arrangement of the stars here, does that match the Pleiades?
Not really.
Yeah.
Still.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun.
What connection you would expect to be something like that if Manson was trying to put in the full Minotaur references he could.
Yeah, well, just the shoulder connection seems kind of interesting. Especially like if you're talking about the shoulder of a constellation, that would be particularly hard to look over.
Would.
So they're part of the constellation. They're in the shoulder,
right?
Or okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, next. Oh, here we go. Room 24. Well, we've got the bellowing laughter, of course.
Stygian gloom.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those 2 phrases, right?
It's really just that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this gives us an indication of the guide's, how evil the guide is, and
right, you come here and you realize, hey, maybe this maze isn't all fun and games.
And this is, suggested that this may be an actual otherworldly or afterworldly place. And apparently the guide is stealthy enough to sneak away while people are just looking at darkness. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, 25. There's a lot in 25.
Oh, yeah. An image of a crown.
The one of my parents might be lowborn, the other was close to a king. I've always felt at home here. That's about it in the text, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Yeah, but that reasonably picks out the Minotaur's parentage.
Right.
Yeah, especially with lowborn being like a pun on the lowing of a cow.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I think so.
About that, but sure.
It does seem a little strange to say that you always felt comfortable in this room because it has a picture of a crown on the wall.
But you know what? I've always thought that he says that because the doors look like stable doors.
Where you keep your Minotaurs?
So it's another clue to his animal nature. Where he would feel at home in a stable.
He was never in a stable.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, if you're an animal, you might feel at home in a stable. It's kind of weird. Those doors are unusual, right?
Yeah, they are.
Sort of a normal-looking hall, and then you have these weird doors.
Yeah, I guess they're a little stably looking. Sure.
Wow, you're being so generous tonight.
Man, I gotta pick my battles here.
monster.
It looked like a stable door. I'm not going to fight you on that one. A bull's face in 43. All right.
We'll get there.
26.
6.
It's another children thing.
That Minotaur.
The game usually goes as I plan it.
Okay, yeah, that's important.
Despite the intentions of my visitors, or perhaps because of... I'm going from memory here. What does it actually say?
That's right. The game usually goes as I plan it, despite the intentions of my visitors, or perhaps because of their intentions.
Okay.
It's pretty good. Yeah. I think we should have a Mazecast where Vincent just attempts to read the whole thing from memory. Recite the whole thing from memory. It'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, actually, Vincent, can you try that with 27?
No.
Is there anything in 26 before we move on?
I've got outer space, and outer is kind of like the word Minotaur.
Okay, so no.
Pitchfork has 3 points on it.
Well, right. That's one of our 3 things.
In Minotaur.
It's like the 3
another
points
Poseidon thing. Well, if you buy the Poseidon connection, then, I mean, it's a devil, it's a pitchfork. It's not like you look at that and go, oh, Poseidon.
With the moon yet again.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, moon and outer space. Moon, outer, Minotaur. Moon, outer space. Minotaur's face. And indeed, the Minotaur does walk around. Maybe I shouldn't be wasting time on things like that, but I will anyway.
Well, we're not going to not waste time. All right. 13.
27.
27.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, this is the one that's missing a period.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, the text is missing a period?
Yeah, they ignored what the figure was trying to tell them, and no period at the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What's that clue to?
There was an error. The rest of the sentence was going to say, : the guide is the Minotaur. Just left out.
Yeah.
Mistake.
Yeah, we've got some general architecture stuff here, but the cat picture looks kind of like a bowl.
What is it, like a bowl?
The picture of a cat.
Oh, yeah, look at how its ears,
hear.
like a bull's horns.
I think like the word choice herded could be intentional.
Can't thought that.
Herds cows? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. It's a pretty normal word to use.
I made a note. Do you think he actually wrote that down? Or do you just think he tried to remember it?
Well, he likes to think of himself as an architect. He probably carries a little pencil around and behind his ear.
Okay.
Just whips it out. All right, 28. We can skip, right?
Yeah. Really, we should discuss it in the exact words we used before. But
we should, but we won't.
I'll just have to fix that in editing.
Right.
29, we already did a long video all about the riddles of this room.
Well, okay, so we have sort of a horn-looking thing in the shadow of the feet. Maybe. I always thought that shadow was supposed to be something.
No, it's just the natural consequence of him being in front of a light source.
Something I just realized.
Yeah.
The group is upset that the guy snatches that paper away from the blind guy and tears it up. How will he find his way without directions? The man says, "Don't worry. Here, blindness is no disadvantage. So if he's blind, then why does it matter that the guy tore up his paper with words on it?"
Well, the upside down guy could have told him what it said. But he can't do that now that the paper's ripped up. He probably, there's no way he'll remember. No, that's a fair point.
It's a fair point.
Oh no, you took away his paper. How will he find his way? Oh, don't worry. Blindness is no disadvantage.
Maybe they didn't realize he was blind.
This guy... Okay, but then why did the blind guy think this was an appropriate reply?
Well, he was just trying to gently tell him that he was blind without being too direct about it.
It's okay that he took that paper. Blindness isn't a disadvantage here.
You know what I'm talking about. Remember your father and all those deceptions?
Oh. All right, nothing in here, right?
Well, except that, like... So the upside down guy's legs are in the shape of bull horns.
Right, I did say that.
You were talking about the shadow. Diane's talking about the legs.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I hadn't noticed the shadows.
My apology. All right, room 30.
There's one bit in the text here. The more confused they became, the more I enjoyed it. No matter how many times I've been through this, I'm always fascinated. So we know the guide is somebody who's been here a while and has an endless ability to be fascinated by this.
Yeah. Well, that speaks more to his current role as the guide in this weird maze game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't really tell you.
Yeah. I don't see anything.
Oh, okay. What do you have? Little drawings.
31. Yeah.
I don't see anything in the text here.
No.
And I don't see anything in the picture.
No, I don't think so.
Although I'm sure you can.
The tree looks kind of like bones, and the Minotaur has bones.
How many bones does a Minotaur have?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've reviewed those old myths.
It's probably the same as a person, except +2 because of the horns, right?
Well, no, because you have to look at the difference in the number of skull bones that we have versus a bull.
Well, but it's not exactly like a bull. Like, you can't even tell this guy's a Minotaur by looking him right in the eye. So I assume his skull structure is pretty similar to a human.
Okay, but he's got extra shoulder bones to make it harder for people to look over his shoulders.
Yeah. He's got 3 heads.
Room 32.
He might have a tail. We don't know. Okay. 32. Here's a room with some stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just read the whole thing. I've got my book out now.
Okay.
So I'm going to read. A large square room with a hole rudely broken through one wall. It must have taken a great deal of strength to pull the heavy stones out of position. The symmetry was also disturbed by the apparent loss of one of the room's statues. My visitors thought a thief had broken into the room, removed the figure, and made away with it. This, of course, was one explanation. Another one, they cried. You mean another representative of the animal kingdom? I asked. What is a bird like that doing here? Roosting, evidently. Their attitude was really beginning to irritate me. I've come to think of all the inhabitants of this house as members of my little kingdom. People can be so arrogant. In a very real way, we are all of us animals, at least in part. I wouldn't answer any more of their questions, so we left this room to enter.
All right. So the idea here is the Minotaur is part animal,
Yep, that's what it suggests.
but also everybody is.
Yep, suggests that too. Also, he gets irritated with attitudes.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, these visitors have pretty whiny voices.
They do a lot of complaining in the
This
course.
was another thing that made you think of Daedalus, right? Or Dumulus, or whatever we're calling him now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, although it's more like, yes, it was a Daedalus thing to make statues that could move.
Mhm.
And since this room seems to be suggesting that the statue got up and knocked the wall down and walked out, so it seems to be a reference to Daedalus, but I don't know that it's really a suggestion that the guide is Daedalus.
Well,
In a
that
sense,
in
it
the
is.
Daedalus made place.
Yeah, I mean, that's in a sense it does, because if Daedalus made parts of the maze and the guide is talking about how he's the architect of the maze, then I guess there's a connection there. But I mean, even just having Daedalus as moving statues in the maze doesn't mean that the architect of the maze was Daedalus. But I do think that's what the suggestion here is, that one of Daedalus's moving statues is here. All right. 33.
It's
We
called. Okay, yep. 33.
So we got a bull's head drum and a bull's head key.
Okay, well, there's a horn in here. There's one of the horns.
There's 35, which is the Minotaur number.
Yep.
Okay, moving on.
That's the
34.
Number of Minotaurs in a fortnight.
Vincent's favorite room.
34.
Okay, so what's in this room? I think that ship is Theseus's ship.
Oh yeah,
because
sure.
because of the black sail.
Right.
Right, so it's a reference to the myth.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got. And so this one they talk about the visitors sitting down, but here they're fine with sitting on the floor, which makes that other one even weirder, where they went to a room with one chair and got excited that finally 3 of them can sit down.
Yeah, it's weird.
Next. Okay.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't really about the Minotaur.
It was weird. This wasn't a room where he had a bunch of those like Minotaur Rebus things, but I don't remember what they were. I know a lot of them revolved around that torn note, or the torn sign for 2025. But
Is my note torn?
my note tore.
Nice.
Yeah. My note tore. It's great.
All right, 35. Blah blah blah.
Okay, well, we learn here that the guide has a very large mouth that he can't hide very well.
I tried to fix that.
If you imagine a person with a bull head, the bull mouth is much larger than a human hand.
It's true.
If you're trying to hide your smile by putting your hand over your mouth, it won't work. Generally, when somebody says, I tried to hide my smile, what they mean is they tried to put their hand over their mouth, but for some reason it didn't work.
So, this is a room where, for no really good identifiable reason, it just feels like it's telling us something about the guide, maybe, right? Maybe? I don't know.
It sort of does, but how much of that is because this is the image that White Raven chose for the guide page on Into the Abyss?
That doesn't mean
that we've all spent so much time looking at.
I mean, that could have been what influenced us to think that way, so I don't know.
This one clearly isn't going to have a self-contained puzzle about where to go, or if it does have one, there's not much point to it.
Well, maybe it's because the thing itself is pointing the way, so we associate that with a guide.
I don't know. I mean, the idea that it's a warning makes you think that it's about the guide, just because that's the only other thing, I guess, in the book we see a warning about is who the guide is. Like, which doesn't seem like the most helpful warning in the world.
Go back, no escape. Those are warnings.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah, you're right. There's no good reason to think this has anything to do with the identity of the guide.
I think it's just because it's a kind of a scary and mysterious room.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and
if
that's
you've been...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it wasn't worth continuing. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's a vaguely humanoid shape, obviously, so you want to think of it as a person, and so kind of wrapped up face, it looks like. So it's like it's got a hidden identity, but
Right.
who knows? Who knows what's going on here?
We know exactly what's going on there.
I don't know a goddamn thing. Even if you buy all that nonsense, that still doesn't really give you a good idea of why there's this figure in the center of the room.
Right.
Like,
so room.
What's that?
We're onto the Plangent Brio room.
Yeah.
I just think that like some of this stuff is there because it's a cool image that he thought of that he wanted to draw.
Yeah.
Like he's a visual artist too, right? Not everything has to make, puzzle. It has to have a reason. Besides, it looks cool.
No.
Okay.
Room 36.
36 is probably the strongest example of the theme we've been seeing throughout, where the guide is portrayed as being pretty into music. Like we saw this in room 7, for instance.
Did we?
Yeah.
I mean, he hears music.
Yeah, and he wanted to stop and listen to it for a moment.
That's true. I mean, it doesn't say like it was because of him or anything, but it says they stopped to listen, and he's, and he doesn't like complain or put. Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, and in this one we see that he has a lot of musical taste and is kind of harshly critical of it, but can still be moved by it.
Yeah, and he uses some unusual vocabulary that makes him sound like a knowledgeable critic. I don't know whether these are real terms that a music critic would use or not, but they're not words that I would know to use. Like, I wouldn't know what plangent brio was if not for this page.
Right. I looked it up because of this book. That's it.
Yeah.
So question
is weird. This is a weird.
Where did Nancy get this idea that maybe the Minotaur is knowledgeable about music? Is that a thing?
That is not a thing that I have been able to find.
Yeah, but
well, unless it's like,
unless
it's sort of generally relating to music has the power to soothe a savage beast or whatever.
Ah, that's interesting. That's an interesting suggestion. But he doesn't seem very soothed by this music is the problem.
I admit I too was affected by the sound as well as by the spectacle.
I mean, it's difficult because his little "it's not bad" blah blah blah. It almost seems put on, right? Because he says it stiffly, and it's like it's not. I don't understand this part at all.
I think it's an interesting idea. I think if that's what was behind his interest in music, it's de-emphasized or contradicted in weird ways. Like, again, you can always say, well, I didn't want to make it too obvious, but this is something where it would not have been too obvious in any way just to have the guide, positively affected by music in some places. So I don't know that I...
Like if I'm saying, wow, this hath the power to soothe me.
I don't know. I don't know either, but it just is something that had occurred to me. Should we move on?
Yeah, so 37.
I don't know. I hate to move on from this page in a way because he talks about himself a lot here.
Yeah.
But Yeah.
This is one of the rooms where it feels like, well, again, we had, I think, a lot more to say about this room when we were just sort of speculating as to what it means about who the guy is. But
Right.
knowing that the guy's a Minotaur, I don't know what to say other than,
Right.
yeah, it doesn't really line up with the Minotaur. I think your suggestion about music soothing the savage beast is the best explanation for what's going on here that I've ever heard. I think that's a really good idea. I don't know that it's a really like compelling explanation completely, but it's I think it's worth thinking about.
Hmm.
I don't know what else to say other than yep. To suggest that the guide's really into music, and nope, that doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Minotaur.
Okay, room 37.
Holy cow, we're actually going to make it through this book. Okay.
We are. We're going to get there.
Doing fine.
Man,
room
there's
37,
nothing about the Minotaur.
There's nothing?
Nothing. There's not a fucking thing.
No, you're right.
Nothing.
Nothing.
The image for it, though. And actually, in the text says that net may help you catch the answer to your question. Net.
It does say that.
May net-er?
It's good. All right, room 38.
Hey.
Nothing in the text.
Nothing in the text.
We talked finished carvings. Maybe Daedalus started making some moving statues here and hasn't finished them yet.
We talked about some possible connections between the carvings here and the Devil Tarot card. That stuff doesn't apply anymore when we know that it's, as far to the Minotaur. The Crumbling Rock here, as we've said before, the parts of Inferno that discuss the Minotaur have a description that may line up with 38 and 40. I think mainly in 40, but the idea that rock has recently crumbled down and stuff is part of the description as well. But maybe we should come to that when we get to 40.
Yeah, the carving above the entrance to 40 on this page looks kind of like a trefoil, and therefore Cerberus. So that's another Minotaur clue.
Well, that's when it's supposed to be a clue to how to interpret 43, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, the circle on the right, that's the circle-shaped snake tail of Cerberus. And then the circle on the left, that's the circle-shaped leftmost wolf head of Cerberus. And then...
All right, moving on. Oh, 39.
39.
Well, look at that jester's hat. It's like a Minotaur. It's just the hat that a Minotaur would wear if it were a jester.
It's a letter M for Minotaur. Oh, you know what? We forgot the best Minotaur sound thing, whatever. I don't know what you're going to call it. It's not really a rebus. Anyway, is the minute hour in room 13.
Yeah.
Minute hour.
That's the best one. Minute hour. Not even in order. Anyway. Okay.
Anything here? Nothing really. Weird suggestion here that he's happy about Fortunato dying behind that brick wall. Like he doesn't want them to know he's in there.
Clue to his evil nature.
Evil.
Yeah. Oh, now wait, Montresor.
Minotaur.
Montresor, is that like an anagram for monster or no? No, it's not.
I was just going to say it sounds like Minotaur. It starts with an M and ends in an R.
It has a lot of the letters in between.
Oh, also mortar.
Yeah. There's some mortar thar on the floor.
Mortar. Okay. All right. 40. Here we go. We're getting there.
Alright, so this is one where we've got these ancient symbols on the rock wall. And
Which the
guy
Minotaur
knows
knows
that
how to
he's
read.
surprised that one of the visitors kind of does. So the guide is someone ancient and earthy, I guess, is the implication.
Yeah, although I mean, when he says it's like, phew, he didn't know how to read it correctly. Presumably, when he's talking about reading it correctly, he's talking about pulling out the letters in the word trap, which is not doesn't require ancient knowledge or anything like
Right, though
that.
he was impressed that this guy could identify signs for wind and water, hills and planets.
Yeah.
Leaving out fire and earth.
That's an odd identification this guy makes. Hey, what are those signs? Oh, wind and water, hills and planets. Odd categories.
That's weird.
Hills and planets.
And we've already talked about the Dante thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't read it, but that's because I didn't do the research that I should have done ahead of time. But
if anyone's interested, they can go look in room 40 in the Abyss, and it's posted there somewhere.
I think we can assume that all of our regular listeners are familiar with the Divine Comedy.
How about this? I will put a link in the comments.
Now, why don't you guys just try to pretend like you're saying something relevant for a few minutes while I look it up.
All right.
All right, so room 41.
Oh.
No. We'll keep talking about 40.
Forward if you want. I'll look up.
Done all 40. Okay, so 40.
40, I think, all these foundation trap rooms, which, I mean, it sort of seems like this is...
Okay.
I don't know. On the one hand, this is where he's trying to lead them. This is the most ancient part of the maze. But he also, in a few places, seems to feel uncomfortable in this part of the maze. So I was going to say...
That jumps out to me about the Minotaur specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We have these steps going down, carved into the stone.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark there, and it also kind of reminds me of catacombs near Paris. Combining these ideas of steps, darkness, ramps. This is the foundation of it, where the guide has probably spent the most time. To him, this would be my noir stare. Also, if you turn it upside down, it looks like a bowl. Vincent, do you have something yet?
I'm trying to get to the translation. I've got part of it, but I didn't quote it in its entirety. God damn. Why is it so slowly? See, I can see this part I quoted where it says, "The place we reached to climb down the bank was craggy, and because of the creature there also, a path that every eye would shun. The descent of that rocky precipice was like the landslide that struck the left bank of the Adige, this side of Trento, caused by an earthquake or a faulty buttress, since the rock is so shattered." But why did I stop quoting it there?
That was the end of the story.
Is that from the Abyss?
Yeah, that's where I quoted the Inferno on the Abyss.
Right.
But then I Google that, and I only get one particular translation that's taking forever to load on my phone.
Try a different translation.
What's that?
Try a different translation.
I could. But
over here, I'll go get my paper copy and see what I can find in that.
If you're on a computer, you could be doing this a lot faster than I am on my stupid phone.
Oh, well, what should I Google? What do you want me to read some words and I'll see if I can find it?
I've got a copy of Robert Pinsky's translation of the Inferno. Will that be good enough?
So we made our way downwards over the landslide of stones that often shifted beneath my feet from the unaccustomed weight. I went thoughtfully, and he said, "Perhaps you are contemplating this fallen mass of rock, guarded by the bestial anger that I quelled a moment ago. I would have you know that the previous time I came down here to the deep inferno, this spill had not yet fallen. But if I discern the truth, the deep and loathsome valley shook not long before he came to take the great ones to the highest circle, so that I thought the universe thrilled with love, by which, as some believe, the world has been overwhelmed by chaos. In that moment, ancient rocks, here and elsewhere, tumbled." But I'm still skipping over the part where they actually saw the Minotaur.
You're skipping over it?
Well, because it's not quoted here. But I read, the first quote I read was about the place where they encountered the Minotaur, and then this quote is from after they met the Minotaur when they're talking about how the rock had recently fallen down.
So it says, caused by an earthquake or faulty buttress, since the rock is so shattered from the summit of the mountain where it started to the plain that it might form a root for someone above, and at the top of the broken gully, the infamy of Crete, the Minotaur, conceived on Pasiphae in the wooden cow, lay stretched out. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
When he saw us, he gnawed himself like someone consumed by anger inside. My wise guide called to him, "Perhaps you think that Theseus, the Duke of Athens, is here, who brought about your death in the world above. Leave here, monstrous creature. This man does not come here aided by your sister, Ariadne, but passes through to see the punishments. Like a bull breaking loose at the moment when it receives the fatal blow that cannot go forward but plunges here and there, so I saw the Minotaur, and my cautious guide cried, 'Run to the passage. While he is in a fury, it is time for you to descend.'" So they tease him, and he takes off, and they get to proceed.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't that helpful.
It's kind of fun, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes place in a craggy area deep underground where there's fallen rock.
It's describing his location. It's like something that Manson might have wanted to incorporate.
Yeah, would you like to hear Pinsky's verse translation?
What's that?
Would you like to hear Robert Pinsky's verse translation of this canto? Elf-like place we came for our descent. Down the steep bank was one no eye would seek, because of what was there. This side of Trent, there's a place a landslide fell and struck. The Adage's flank, because of unstable ground, or earthquake, rocks once tumbled from the peak, and formed a passage where people can descend. Such was the footing we had down that ravine, and at the broken chasm's edge we found the infamy of Crete conceived within the false cow's shell. When he saw us come his way, he bit himself in rage like one insane. My master called, "Perhaps you think you see the Duke of Athens, the one who dealt you death, up in the world, east, take yourself away. This is no man your sister taught, in truth. He has come here to witness your punishment. As a bull breaks loose in the death blow's aftermath, and plunges back and forth, but though unspent, cannot go forward, so did the Minotaur act. My wary guide cried, 'Run to the descent. Go quickly while he's raging.' So we picked our way down over a rubble of scattered stone that shifted under me often as I walked." And it goes on for a while more. That's a bit with the Minotaur.
It's nicer to read in that form than a horrible Comic Sans.
That's like this room, right?
What's that?
That's like this room that was the moral?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this room has rocks in it, too.
Okay, 41.
That's the other connection.
We got to keep moving, you guys. I'm fading.
41.
Almost done here. Horns. There are horns in this room.
There are, and there's a bullseye.
There is a bullseye.
Bullseye. Check.
Yeah. Oh, and a bullfrog. A bullfrog. Guys.
Bullfrog.
A bullfrog. Come on.
Slow down and take this seriously. Bullseye, bullfrog, horns.
Bullhorns.
It's not a bullhorn, but bulls,
No,
yeah.
but why not?
Horns. It's kind of a, yeah, substantial. Like it's noticeably a bullfrog, right?
Yeah.
There's that picture of a girl pointing to her earlobes. Lobe is bull backwards, phonetically.
That's probably it.
All right, next one.
42?
42.
Okay.
Nothing.
Well, God says you can count on me, meaning they could count using his horns.
Yeah, count up to 2.
Yeah.
That's why that one die only has a 1, a 1, and a 2 on it. Like, because that's as high as you can count on a Minotaur's horns.
Oh, look where we are.
43. Okay, so the main thing here is in the center of the image, we see a horn.
Bulls have horns.
It could also be a bell, and bell sounds like bull. And the other thing is, Yor and Self are written on Greek urns. There's our connection to a Greek myth.
Hmm.
And it says you have to be very particular in this house, with house being capitalized, the way it would be for House of Asterion.
I was able to find all the letters of Minotaur in various different ways in this house, in this room.
Okay, now what Sarah's zooming in here is, I think, something that looks like a bullhead.
Here it is.
There's outlining it not exactly the way I see it, but pretty close.
There he is.
So
your rebuttal?
the face in the middle there, you've got the 2 little statues on either side holding the sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sticks, it's hard to tell what's going on, if those are like levers or what's going on, but I think what's going on is like it's like those, it's like they're in a boat or something maybe, and they're using those to row. So I would say that those are minute oars.
Yeah, Vincent, they're clearly rowing across the river Styx, and that's why they're Styx.
Okay, so there's a bull in here.
And then it says on either side of it, Minotaur.
Oh, there's like, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I found it 100 ways. Oh, and there's a screaming face as well, looking up at the Minotaur.
Yeah, going, "Ah!"
That's my favorite thing.
Wait, what?
So this trapdoor is like a screaming mouth.
Oh, wow.
It's like maybe a tongue sticking out, and there's the eyes and the urns. And it's going, ah, Minotaur! Ah! I like that.
Okay, so that's another indication that the guide is the Minotaur.
Yeah, because it's scary.
There's a screaming face in a room.
His face has suddenly realized that the guide is the Minotaur. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay, moving on. 44. Here we go.
Text establishes that he's a liar.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's all.
Well, we have the alligator.
Oh, it's the Minotaur. This is the Minotaur. It's a minor bird going around circles. Oh. Minotaur.
Okay.
Minotaur.
I think the caiman being chained up does suggest a beast imprisoned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Statue in the middle could be Athena.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. I don't know. It's an owly helmet that it's wearing, but it doesn't look a lot like any image of Athena that I've found.
No.
Athena is usually a sexier looking dame. All the gods are.
I'm not sure if Manson's one for drawing sexy dames.
No, I know. I hate to even point it out, but that's the way it is with those Greek gods. it's funny because like Aphrodite
Mm-hmm.
is like supposed to be the goddess of love and sex and all that stuff, but she looks just like every other Greek goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why she's always getting into fights about it. Because she's just like basically declaring, "Hey, I'm the goddess of beauty," and like everyone's like, "Oh, you look just like me."
What makes
Thank
you
you.
such hot shit? Thank you. All right. Oh my gosh.
Oh, last room. Here we go.
Last room.
So this room is so full of stuff for the riddle of the maze. Is there much about the riddle of the guide?
I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't think there's
except
any
that
guide stuff
I
here.
am a hand with a spear, but that's probably not about who the guide is.
Right, but this room does present a good example for us to discuss something which maybe puts a good, end on this discussion, which is just what does the Minotaur have to do with the very idea of this book in the first place? Like, what does the Minotaur have to do with the idea of making puzzles and riddles and stuff for people to solve anyway? Like, that just has nothing to do with any conception of the Minotaur that I've ever seen.
I think
The
the
Minotaur
only
wasn't.
connection is that there's a maze.
Yes.
I think that was enough.
Enough to say, okay, the guide's going to be the Minotaur?
Yeah. I think that's
Sure.
enough to say, oh, hey, I've this puzzle book with a maze. Got, well, if I have a guide,
Here's a good.
who's going to be in a maze? I know, a Minotaur?
Well, sure, okay, but why? Like, it's not immediately, even with that premise, like, why does the person who's guiding them through need to be the person who made the maze? It could just be that the Minotaur is very familiar with the maze because he wanders around. He might have no idea where it came from, or I mean, it could be like almost entirely the same. You just don't say that the guide was the architect behind any of this stuff. Like,
That's White Raven's theory,
what?
that he is not at all the architect. He just likes to show himself that way, and that the house itself is the thing that is, has all the riddles and stuff.
My theory is that he's not even the guide.
Because there's such a sense of him sabotaging things all the time, right? Like, why would he create all these puzzles and only in order to then sort of clumsily sabotage them?
Because he's the false guide. His role is to distract you from the true guide within yourself.
It's interesting if I don't know why I preface everything I say with, it's interesting. He talks about he's proud of his role as architect, but it doesn't mean to say that he's like the sole architect or what his role as an architect was. It may be that
the maze was here, and now he's entered and has architected this new horrible experience that traps everybody in darkness.
yes, like maybe his architectural role was limited to creating entryways to the trap and trying to get people to go down there. And yeah, maybe he has nothing to do with any of these puzzles that you're encountering here. And he talks about how it's always growing and changing and stuff. Maybe that's why he can't just destroy all the clues.
Right. So like the house keeps kind of repairing its systems of puzzles or whatever, and he keeps going through trying to sabotage them and make holes so that make entrances to the trap or whatever.
And that's why he is himself trapped here. If he ever leaves, then people will be able to solve the real maze and get at whatever it is he wants them to not get to.
He's like a virus in the system, maybe.
Well, anything else? Back of the book?
Back cover?
I guess we should be complete, eh?
Back cover has a lot of stuff said by the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does say despite who else I might be, which does clue the fact that the guide does have an identity.
Right.
meant that as a joke, but it is sort of.
No, it does.
Clues that, clues that.
That's exactly what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it though.
I say it is mine. Mine, not yours. Mine, not yours.
Yeah, he does call it his maze here, which I guess doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it is a little strange when he's talking about this as his maze and it's a challenge of wits.
Yeah.
It does make it seem more like he's behind the puzzles.
But fear not. I will be with you all the way. Fear not, that is, if you truly believe that my clues or I can be trusted. Ha 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 ha.
Wait a minute, the clues all lead the wrong way anyway. Why would he want to destroy them? We just had that whole conversation as if the clues in this puzzle make a goddamn difference.
Yeah, as though it takes a lot of malign interference to stop people from solving this puzzle. All right, so
right.
I think we've conclusively demonstrated that the guide is the Minotaur.
All right, that's what our...
We didn't even get to any of that, did we? This is all, okay, so given that we're pretty sure the guide is the Minotaur, there's things that sort of match that, but not quite.
Well, yeah, that was the point. We've already talked about in other videos, that other stuff. This was just, let's re-examine this all from the lens that we know it's the Minotaur. What does this say about that?
Yeah.
And I think we've discovered is it really didn't say that much about it.
Yeah.
Like there's some obvious stuff that we already knew about. We talked about in other places. We did find some interesting stuff, or I think it was stuff that just Sarah already knew that I hadn't heard of before. I really like that music soothes the savage beast thing. I think that's
right.
I think that was a good suggestion for why the guide is into music. But for the most part, nothing new to see here. So don't bother watching this whole video. It's going to be really long. Hopefully you skip to the end and watched me saying this before you watch the whole video.
If you did
waste 3 hours.
Go back and listen to the bit where I do some solo explanations of rooms, what was it, 7 and 8?
I'm looking forward to going back to
I
listen
think
to
I covered some good material there when I didn't have much dead weight.
Yeah, thanks for carrying the cast
You're
there,
welcome.
Dan. Vincent and I had separate child issues to deal with.
All right.
But fortunately for Mazecast, I have a weird medical thing where I can't have children.
I think
Well,
we're
everyone, that's been our Minotaur show.
Make it stop.
Next minnow time.
It wasn't a minute. It was not an hour. Anyway, good night, everybody.